Now calling to order the December 11th, 2024 meeting of the Santa Rosa City Schools Board of Education. Before starting on the public comment on closed session agenda items, we'll be pulling closed session item B4, which is the conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation. That item will be pulled from the agenda and not be discussed today. So we will now be taking public comment on closed agenda items B1, student expulsions, B2, public employee discipline, dismissal, and release, B3, conference with labor negotiator, and B5, public employee performance evaluation. Are there any blue cards for public comments?
President Medina, there are no blue cards.
Seeing no public comments, we will now recess to closed session. We are now reconvening the December 11th, 2024 meeting of the Santa Rosa City Schools Board of Education. If everybody would please rise for the pledge and then remain standing for our land acknowledgement. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Now please remain standing while Landon Long from Lincoln Valley Middle School leads us in our land acknowledgement.
I acknowledge that Santa Rosa City Schools is on the traditional territory and homelands of the Pomo people, traditional territory and homelands of the Coast Miwok people, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it through the generations. This land acknowledgement calls us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and we work to Santa Rosa City Schools more accountable to needs of American Indian and Indigenous people.
Thank you, Landon. You may all now be seated. We will now move on to our C3 item. There were no actions taken in closed session. And just for people that weren't here, item B4 was removed from the agenda. Items considered in closed session for action in open session. And we will go to our student expulsions. Can I have a motion on case 2024/25-08?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved by trustee Flores, seconded by trustee De La Torre. Can we get a vote?
Trustee Flores,
Aye.
Trustee De La Torre,
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield,
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz,
Aye.
Trustee McNally. Aye. Trustee Manieri. Aye. President Medina.
Aye. Can we get a motion to approve the recommendation on expulsion case 2024/25-10?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved by trustee Flores, seconded by trustee Sheffield. Can we have the vote?
Trustee Flores,
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield,
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz,
Aye.
Trustee McNally. Aye. Trustee De La Torre,
Aye.
Trustee Manieri. Aye. President Medina.
Aye. Can we get a motion to approve the recommendation on student expulsion case 2024/25-12, please?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved by trustee Flores, seconded by trustee Sheffield. Vote, please.
Trustee Flores,
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield,
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz,
Aye.
Trustee McNally. Aye. Trustee De La Torre,
Aye.
Trustee Manieri. Aye. President Medina.
Aye. Can I get a motion to accept the recommendation on student expulsion case 2024/25-16?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved by trustee Flores, seconded by trustee De La Torre. Vote, please.
Trustee Flores,
Aye.
Trustee De La Torre,
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield,
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz,
Aye.
Trustee McNally. Aye. Trustee Manieri. Aye. President Medina.
Aye. Thank you. We will now move on to item C5, statements of abstention. Board, are there any statements of abstention? Seeing none. Item C6, adjustments to the agenda. Any adjustments to the agenda, board? Seeing none, we will now move on to reports. Our first report is from California School Employee Association. Santa Rosa, Chapter 75, report,
Oh,
President Helen
President
Lehman.
Medina, I think it's public comment first.
Oh, yeah. Going too fast. Okay, so for public comment, real quick, there was a lot of folks that submitted stuff. It looks like if you submitted stuff on school closure, we're gonna address it on E7. But outside of that, anything non-agendized, I'll be calling on right now. I'll be calling 3 names at a time. When I call your name, make sure to get up next to one of the podiums. And due to the number of cards, we're gonna do 90 seconds. So first I have, looks like Dick Shermer, followed by Kathy Bassini, followed by Chris Gray. Oh, Dirk Shermer.
President Medina, first, I want to thank you for your hard work on behalf of this community, in particular, your vocational work at the Elsie Allen Foundation, as our community sorely needs such programs as you've spearheaded. In fact, I think actually it's probably more important than having your voice here on the school board. However, because you are paid by the foundation, it creates such a bias in favor of Elsie Allen that California law requires you to recuse yourself in the chairing of meetings, participation in discussions, voting, and perhaps even being present during discussions of certain budgetary items, and in particular, any matters related to school closures or consolidations. As school consolidation is going to be the largest item on the board's agenda going forward, it is highly unlikely that continuing as board president will be fair or even possible. I have shared the legal background for this with some of the trustees already, but I have also prepared some paper copies if anyone would care to read them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Kathy Bassini, followed by Chris Gray, followed by Angel Ortega. Kathy?
Good evening. I certainly hope that you have been able to see how committed we are to getting a decent raise, one that we deserve. We don't want to hear that there isn't any money. We should not have to pay for your mistakes. You're the ones who created the situation. You've known for a long time exactly how bad the situation is. But yet the teachers got a raise and they deserve it. The admin got their raise. And then in spite of the critical situation, you gave yourselves a raise. The CSEA employees should not have to pay for your mistakes. We can barely afford groceries, rent, utilities, gas. It's not easy. We deserve better. Instead of making another mistake, we are asking you to do the right thing and approve a decent raise for us. We are asking you to do what is morally and ethically correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Chris Gray, followed by Angel Ortega, followed by Samantha Sharp. Chris?
My name is Chris Gray. I am the CSEA Union Site Rep for Elsie Allen High School. I am also the parent of a child who attends Proctor Terrace Elementary. My heart has been heavy this fall. We have made it to December and classified employees still haven't received the raise we deserve. With school consolidation and imminent layoffs, many of us face losing both the school we work at as well as our child's school, all in the next 6 months. It's heartbreaking. What will we do when our entire sense of community is blown up? I implore the board to work with CSEA to increase our wages so that our employees, the lowest paid in the district, have more financial support when facing what is about to come. I also ask that when closing schools, you try to keep communities together as much as possible instead of cutting apart the student population of each school piece by piece to be redistributed like commodities. This will already happen with staff at every school next year because of seniority layoffs. The upcoming decisions of the board will affect the livelihood of thousands of Santa Rosa families. Please remember that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Angel Ortega, followed by Samantha Sharp, followed by Jackson Roncelli. Angel?
Thank you for having me. My name is Angel. I'm a proud alum, staff, and coach of and for LC Allen High School and a proud member of CSEA. Since my injury in October, I've received bills for an ambulance ride at $3,600, an ER visit at $14,000, and leg surgery for $59,000. When it comes to our raises, it's a shame that you put us on hold when in reality, we can't put life on hold. So school board, be grateful that we care and love our kids. Be grateful that we love our sites and communities, especially in these uncertain times as many may face potential closures and layoffs. And be grateful that we only seek reconciliation and not retaliation. Give us the wage we deserve. Shout out LC Allen, shout out Southwest Santa Rosa, shout out CSEA.
Thank you, Angel. Next, I have Samantha Sharp, followed by Jackson Roncelli, followed by Patrick Atchison. Samantha?
This is the probably sixth or seventh time I've talked at a board meeting about the exact same thing. At my first board meeting, I extended the invitation for all of the board members and Superintendent Morales to come to our classified offices and spend at least an hour, ideally half a day there. Since then, no one has made an effort to do that. At our last special board meeting, there was questions about whether you even knew what job titles were in what offices, and since then, that has also not been rectified, and that is still an unknown for you. You are continuing to push forward with budget cuts, with school closures, and with laying off CSEA members in the future without actually knowing what we do or how valuable we are for our schools. We interact with the students every single day. We are the front line for the parents. As Daisy Morales said, we are customer service, and we are doing all of these things and wearing all these hats without a raise for over 6 months now. Without a raise, we are continuing to live our lives, go to work, and do what we need to do for our kids while you guys continue to put us on hold. I'm hoping that at the negotiations on Friday, there's a change. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jackson Roncelli, followed by Patrick Atchison. Jackson?
Hello, my name is Jackson Roncelli, and I am a senior at Santa Rosa High School. I am here on behalf of the classified staff members of this district. I work personally with these staff members every day, and I see how much work they put into their jobs and their students. Classified staff members are the backbone of our schools. I find it completely ridiculous that the board continues to avoid granting these valued members of our community the raise they are asking for. These are good, hardworking people who deserve our support. The decision to exclude the classified staff from the pay raise given to teachers and administrators is frankly unjust. I urge you to take a look on what would happen to our schools without classified staff members. Take a look around you. I see familiar faces that are continuously fighting for their recognition in this district. I see them. Why don't you? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Patrick Atchison.
Hello, my name is Patrick Atchison, and I'm here to talk about the fiscal stabilization plan involving cutting ties with outside agencies that serve special education interests. So I'm a SEP teacher, one of a few in the district, which stands for Counseling Enriched Program. We serve students who generally fall between the cracks in general education. And in our classrooms, we have a teacher, a therapist, and 2 instructional aides. In my classroom, I have a district aide and I have an outside aide from a different agency. And when I first started, there was a massive shortage of district aides, and unfortunately there still is. So these aides are so important in the classroom. They have such beautiful relationships with the students, and I don't know how I would do my job without them. But because of this shortage, which I believe is because the district isn't paying its aides enough. There is not a competitive pay for district aides. It's about $19 versus $22 starting for contract aides. The district aide in my classroom couldn't make it because she's busy working her second job and can't be here to advocate for herself. So please consider paying district aides more before cutting contract aides. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, now we will move on to our reports. California School Employees Association, Chapter 75, President Mary Helen Lehman. Floor is yours.
Good evening. I want to thank all of our members that are here tonight. Please give yourself a round of applause. Good evening, President Medina, Governing Board, Superintendent Dr. Morales, Student Board Member, Cabinet members, and everyone here tonight, and everyone listening online. Thank you to all of you who contributed to the public comment. I want to express my gratitude to the classified staff, teachers, students, and parents who came tonight to show the district we care. Your presence confirms our shared commitment in making SRCS the best it can be. We are engaged, empowered, but not yet fully embraced. We stand in full support of the resolution recognizing SRCS as a state safe haven school district to provide a secure and welcoming environment for our students, their families, and our community, to protect all against the threats of immigration enforcement and discrimination. Tonight's discussion action item F4, the 2024-25 first interim fiscal report, is what we have been waiting for. It includes a proposed positive certification. The district has invited us back to the negotiating table this Friday, Friday the 13th. We hope it will be a better day than what superstition suggests. We deserve an equal compensation package that aligns with what others have already received. We urge the board to prioritize fair and equitable compensation for our classified employees, who remain the backbone of this district. Their hard work and dedication deserve recognition, and yet they are still waiting. In closing, I ask the board to lead with transparency, accountability, and empathy. While the road ahead will not be easy, it is essential that we move forward together, ensuring every member of our district is engaged, empowered, and embraced. With courage and compassion, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our Santa Rosa Teachers Association report. President Howell, floor is yours.
Good evening, President Medina, Superintendent Morales, members of the board, members of the public. I am Catherine Howell, President of the Santa Rosa Teachers Association. I represent about 900 teachers in Santa Rosa City Schools. I'm going to start by saying, once again, SRTA is 100% behind CSEA and their bargain. Thank you, President Lehman, for your words. I'm going to say something that I don't think you need just equality. You need more. You need a bigger raise than the teachers got, in my opinion, because you are so underpaid. Your percentage should be higher than what we got. And these CSEA workers are indeed the backbone of this district. The teachers cannot do their jobs without them. We cannot have schools without our CSEA members. And we need to collectively recognize them, embrace them, and pay them what they're worth. I'll move on to the next topic that I'm sure we will hear quite a bit more about in a few minutes, and that's school closure and consolidation. It's on the top of everyone's minds. I've been hearing about it for months. I'm sure the board has gotten hundreds, if not thousands, of comments from community members. It's not going to end anytime soon. And frankly, will hurt this community for years. Absolutely. The number of people in the room, the number of comments we haven't heard yet, I think we are absolutely experiencing chaos because there's not enough information. The committee will be making recommendations with no guarantees or assurances of any kind that the board will follow them. All the schools are still on the list with no ability to say, oh yeah, let's narrow it. So let's keep the whole city in panic as long as we can, right? It's horrible. There's so many rumors out there because there's no concrete information out there. And that needs to be something that maybe we can deal with. It also is, I think, important to point out that with this first interim coming out, the district got more money than they anticipated. Yay, revenue is up. But oh, guess what? So are expenditures in a year when we knew way back in August when the committee started that school closures and consolidation was on the table. Somehow we get here to December 11th with $7 million more in spending. Shocking, right? How can we expect these school closures to do anything if we can't even control our spending in a year when we know we shouldn't be spending money? We have studies from Oakland, from Chicago, from Washington, D.C. that shows that school closures don't necessarily save money. In every instance, the school districts have discovered at least a 20% difference between what they anticipated saving and what they actually saved. So school closures don't necessarily save money. We know that school closures are bad for students. They're bad for communities, they're bad for families, they're bad for our students. It's a negative impact on academics, there's a negative impact on behavior, and there's a negative impact on attendance. We also have no guarantee that all of the students that are currently attending one of our schools that will be closed will stay in Santa Rosa City Schools. We have no way of predicting the attrition. And we might be right back here again because we have lost so many students that the closure of our schools made no difference. I'm going to ask some questions. Why? Why are we spending more money than budgeted on consultants? Why are we spending more money than budgeted on outside agencies? Why are we spending more money than budgeted on administrator salaries? Why is the district spending $1 million more on administrator salaries than they budgeted for? Where did that $1 million come from? Why is the district projecting $13 million more in spending than budgeted for? Why are you still planning to spend $96 million out of a bond that only covers a third of the improvements needed to our school sites? Why would you consider spending that, even a dime of that money, on a new district office when we're going to have empty schools? I'll wrap this up. I'm going to ask the board. SRTA is asking the board to please investigate seriously some sort of retirement incentive. SRTA is expecting the bulk of the layoffs to hit teachers because the savings predicted in school closures already includes administrators and CSEA. So the extra $8 million in layoffs, we're expecting it to come from the educators of this district. A retirement incentive, let's look into it. Do some serious mathing and figure it out, right? In the last few days, San Francisco announced a retirement incentive for their district that is struggling. Maybe it won't be a savings in 1 year, but it might be a savings in 2 or 3 years. We know that the top 81% of our teachers make about $9 million just in salary, not even including the driven costs of pension and health insurance. And the bottom 250 make about $18 million. So our top 81 members cost about the same as 2 or 2.5 of our lowest paid members. So let's look at a retirement incentive. Let's keep our young teachers in their positions, and let's help those that want to retire. Let's help a few people out with a little bit of a pat on the back and a thank you, and let's try to keep our district as healthy as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, President Howe. Now we'll now move on to our superintendent's report. Superintendent Dr. Daisy Morales.
Hi, everyone, and welcome tonight. Well, I have been responding, the bulk of my time has been responding to emails about school consolidations and closure. And I know lots of comments are coming for that item, and I'll wait till our associate superintendent is giving that report. It's going to be a hard time for all of us, and we really are committed to making it the most compassionate and empathetic that we can as we go through these challenging times. And that's the message that I've been sharing with everyone that has been emailing us, or the board has sent me their emails. Last week during the conference, I had the opportunity to sit at a table with one of the board members from the Alum Rock School District in San Jose, who's very similar to us in demographics and number of schools and number of students, also in the number of deficit that they have to reduce. And so she was able to give me some pointers in terms of what they did. So we're going to be collaborating with them so that we could learn, follow kind of the process that they have done that has been successful. So we continue to learn, and I want you to know, everybody know that we will be doing 5 town hall meetings in the month of January. In the next couple of days, our PIO will be sending out a flyer with the dates and the locations so that the community can continue to give us input before the Board of Trustees makes any final decisions. So I encourage and invite everyone to attend those. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Morales. Looks like it's my turn. First, I'd just like to start off by saying we're towards the end of the semester. I see there's a lot of student performances, winter performances happening. So make sure to head out and check them out. See the amazing work that our students do. They put a lot of time and effort to creating beauty for us, and it's why we're here. We're here for our students. I'm wishing that everybody enjoys this time that we have. I must admit that lately I've been having a lot of trouble sleeping. We have very difficult decisions ahead, and it's ultimately the ones that are gonna be impacted most and struggle the most. It's gonna be our students. I mean, that's why you all are here, why we're here. It's about our students, and it's not easy. It's not gonna be pretty. It is unfortunate. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and it's causing a lot of chaos and fear amongst people. But I'm glad that people want to fight for their schools. It's important. I agree with President Howe. There's a lot of questions that I know we as board members want to see answered. I know that building a new district office doesn't make sense now, and we shouldn't until we see what happens with school closures. I think the one thing that I don't see any benefit from closing schools aside from money, and I would love to see alternative solutions, but there's very little time in terms of what we got to do it, and that's one of the big struggles we face. I don't want to be in this place, and I know nobody here wants to be in this situation, but it's where we're at right now. And if people have alternative solutions, I know we'd love to hear them. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll open up for other board members for reports. Trustee La Torre.
Thank you, President Medina. There's a lot that could be said. There's a lot that should be said. Ultimately, I'd like to address the room. I'd like to address everyone that's made it here tonight. I'd like to address everyone that's watching us on Zoom this evening and following this very difficult path that we are on. I ask that you be in this room with respect and civility, understanding the immense pressure and trauma that we're about to embark on. Now is not a time for pitchforks and torches. Now is a time for engagement and understanding. I am glad that you're all here. I am glad that you're all paying attention. Whether you found out about this 7 months ago when we started talking about it, or 2 weeks ago when you got a flyer in your mailbox, I am glad you're here. I am glad it is on your radar. I invite community leaders to spread facts and not myths and rumors about what may happen. Ultimately, we do not yet know any named schools that could be closed or consolidated. All 24 campuses are going through a matrix for data purposes to see what those savings could or would not look like. So do not assume your campus is being closed because your neighbor told you so. If you are this involved, if you are this engaged, I invite you to contact your neighborhood school and see what they need. Connect with the parent organizations, connect with the sports boosters, connect with the arts programs and the music programs, attend the performances, attend the games, donate your time. If you have funds, donate funds. Chaperone, be involved in your students' and children's lives. There's a lot of energy in this room right now, and it doesn't all feel like cupcakes and rainbows. So I invite you to indulge me, please. The younger generation all knows how to hard reset their new iPhone. The older generation was told by IT to turn it off and reboot it and see if it restarts. We have this beautiful, unique mechanism in the human body that if we take 3 deep breaths, we can actually recalibrate ourselves and give ourselves the energy and the composure to be in the moment and share the messages that we want to share. To share those messages with anger and vile and hate will fall on deaf ears. So please, collectively, silently, as a room, close your eyes, leave your eyes open, whatever feels best. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Breathe in and feel that breath inhale all the way into the core of our bodies, down to our diaphragms. Exhale. And respect yourself enough to do this last one properly. Take a deep breath in, feel it, bring in the moment, bring in the opportunities, and exhale and breathe out. We are here to listen. We are here to answer questions we have answers to and questions we don't have answers to. The greatest tool in our tool belt is to make sure those questions get to the appropriate people that can answer them. Enough with the myths and rumors. Enough with the fear mongering. Collaborate as a community. Let's work together and let's get through this very painful time and decisions that none of us want to make, but we are put in these positions to make those decisions. It is not my vote. It is not my opinion. It is the vote of my constituents that put me here to make the best choices possible to provide opportunities for all of our students, teachers, and staff.
Thank you, Trustee La Torre. Other board members' reports? I'll go with Trustee McNally, then De La Cruz.
Hi, everyone. I just want to give a quick report on the CSBA conference. I was one of the board members that attended, and I know there was some questioning of why we were spending money on that. And honestly, I don't know whether that was the best use of those funds, but I do want to be transparent and just let you all know what I learned and what my activities were at the conference. So I attended sessions on school safety, which focused a lot on partnerships with law enforcement and fire. So I learned a lot about that and got to hear from other school districts who have similar issues to what we have. I also attended a session on closures and consolidation, and learned about the proper procedure for that, which seemed to align perfectly with what we are following here. We are following the procedure that is recommended by the state and that other districts are following. And something that did come up was really the importance when those decisions are made of how that transition is going to happen and how the receiving schools are going to welcome those students. So when we get to that point, I hope to work with Superintendent Morales on making sure that that happens and that's done well. I also attended sessions on superintendent evaluations, which is a key part of the board's job, and on the cost of conflict and the importance of getting along as a board and as a school district. So that's something that I've been reflecting on a lot. And I'm glad that during the conference, I was able to spend time with Superintendent Morales, with Dr. Zanz, and with two of our incoming board members. This district is going through a lot of change, welcoming a new superintendent earlier this year and welcoming 3 new board members next week. So I think it's really important that we get to know each other and that we make sure this transition, that we continue to get along and solve problems and not create more problems. So yeah, I just wanted to let you all know what I learned, what I was doing at that conference and why we were there.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. Trustee La Cruz?
Hello and good evening, beloved community. Thank you, Trustee De La Torre, for starting out with making sure that we're all on the same page and informed and aware of where we are in this process of school closures. We haven't had a regular board meeting in quite some time, so I just wanted to share some love to the Santa Rosa High School Art Quest Theater program. It was really beautiful to go to the Cinnabar Theater and to celebrate, the work of kids telling stories about their lives that we need to hear and listen to in a good way. And just with so much gratitude for your work, thank you, ArtQuest students. This board, I'm really proud of the way that we are continuing to work together as a board and an administration to make sure that the decisions that we make about how we roll out and approve student art throughout our district is really thoughtful and caring and responsive to the concerns that we heard, but also to really uplift and respect the work of student artists. So thank you. I see you back there. Yay, ArtQuest. And then just sending lots of love to kids who are right in the middle of dead week and going into finals. So adelante y si se puede.
Thank you, Trustee La Cruz. Any other board member reports? Trustee Manieri?
Thank you, President Medina. I came prepared to share some upcoming concerts for folks to attend. We have a really busy week this week across our high schools with all sorts of performances. And as Trustee De La Torre mentioned, being involved and engaged and showing up for our students is one of the best things that we can do right now. And that really requires us to go and to show up. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone knows what's going on in our across our high schools with regard to concerts and performances. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., Pioneer High School is performing their winter concert in collaboration with Comstock Middle School. And so that'll start at 7 p.m. for those who can attend. On Friday at 7 p.m., LC Allen will be having their winter music concert. They will have the drumline performing Ballet Folklorico, Mariachi Lobos, and the band and color guard will also be performing, again, at 7 p.m. on Friday. And Maria Carrillo High School has their Winter's Night Choir concert both tomorrow and Friday at 7 p.m. And they will be bringing their treble choir, bass choir, chamber singers, the back row, and the Nightingales. That also starts at 7 p.m. both nights. And similarly, yeah. And similarly, Santa Rosa High School's Art Quest Vocal Choir is having their winter concert tomorrow and Friday at 7 p.m. And I understand that they'll have a special performance with former Santa Rosa High School choral director Dan Earl directing a really beautiful performance with alumni from the choir. So that sounds like it'll be a really special performance. I hope that we can all show up to one of these performances. I know I'll be going to one. And again, this is one of the best things that we can do for our community right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Magnetti. Trustee La Cruz?
Sorry, I got all excited about Art Quest Theater, and I forgot to mention Art Quest Band at Santa Rosa High School. It has a historic opportunity to play in Carnegie Hall in New York, and specifically to play a piece of music that was written for this band. So they are debuting the first ever performance of this piece of music, and the band has crashed into a really hard wall of fundraising efforts and bureaucratic challenges. And so it's a historic opportunity for the Santa Rosa High School Band. And I would just love to ask every single member in this room and of our community to dig deep and find ways to make sure that our kids get to play on world-class stages and mark, just such critical moments in their career as artists. So we'll continue to update you about best ways to contribute and to support this historic moment for our district and our kids.
Any other board member reports? I'm sorry. Any other board member reports? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to student trustee, Ms. Zuniga, your report.
Thank you for all the updates. Go Santa Rosa High School Band. So I'd like to raise the questions, these questions for students regarding recognizing Santa Rosa City Schools District as a safe haven. What can we do to follow up with this commitment as students and as members of the community? How can we as a community and as students work towards protecting our students and their families from threats of new administrations? I encourage students to participate in this discussion and advocate, because this is what's happening right now is going to directly affect us. Speak with your superintendent, student council, board representatives, and ask them to bring your concerns to the next meeting so we can take organized action. Last week, I attended the CSBA conference in Anaheim with the rest of the board, and I received training that I can use to help aid this process and be the best liaison possible for student voices. I learned about the essential roles and responsibilities of each team in the district. I received training on how to better myself and be more present and engaged in these meetings. I was briefed on the LCAP and its connection to the dashboard, and I encourage you guys to go and check out the dashboard. It's an amazing way that we can see how we're doing it as a district and what we need to do to improve. I was also trained on bettering my ability to show up as a representative to all students and their voices, and how to organize student voice and get their input on policy. So lots of big dreams and lots of ideas are popping into my head. So I encourage you guys to organize with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trustee Zuniga. Next, we'll move on to our school consolidation / closure report. Superintendent Lisa August.
Thank you, President Medina, Dr. Morales, members of our SRCS board and our Santa Rosa community. Just want to give an overview. There were links included just for reference if anyone is interested in looking at our webpage that's now new and improved and has our FAQs that we are continuing to update on there. We just concluded our LCAP Budget Roadshow presentations. Those are our annual presentations where we go out and provide information. And this year, we also included information about our Fiscal Stabilization Committee work, as well as our School Closure Consolidation Advisory Committee work. The next SCAC, or School Consolidation Advisory Committee, Meeting will be held on Monday, December 16th at 5:30 in the Student Union at Montgomery High School. Our recent information events have been well attended, and we wanted to provide a larger space for more public attendance going forward for these meetings. And just as board meetings, these are Brown Act meetings, which are held in public, but they are not with the public. This essentially means that the business of the committee is conducted in public, and the public has a right to comment within the prescribed times on subjects under the purview of the committee. It's not a Q&A session, and so I wanted to make that clear because I know that that can be frustrating for attendees if they think that they're going to come and receive, if it's an interactive process. We are adding an information item to the end of that agenda for correspondence. I've had many members of the public who have sent written correspondence, and so we want to make sure that the committee has an opportunity to see that. So those will be attached. The next committee meeting will focus on the analysis of the information presented at earlier meetings. This will be more of a workshop than a presentation, and staff will be available to clarify information for the committee members. We are asking the committee to identify 3 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school for recommended closure. The committee will also be asked to rank at least 5 elementary and each middle and high school so that when that information comes to the board, there's some choice in what they recommend as far as some ideas of how they got to that, to those recommendations. We are scheduling town hall meetings, as Dr. Morales mentioned, in January, and those will be specifically focused on school closure and consolidation and the potential to reimagine our schools. Right now, we are spreading our resources so thin across so many sites that we are not providing as focused of an effort or as rich of individual programs as we could be by consolidating those programs and sites. The timeline, so we do have ongoing planning, which for us on the back end, because we don't have that narrowed down choice yet, that looks like 90 scenarios for elementary schools, possible combinations, and dozens of potential middle and high school combinations. So that's the work that our team is doing on the back end so that we can, when that recommendation and information comes to the board, it's as complete as possible. It will have recommended or some options for boundaries, all of that information, so as not to have to delay information for families after decisions are made. On the December 16th workshop style meeting for analysis and potential spend-a-dot exercise. So the intention is that by the end of that meeting, we will be very close to the final list of recommendations. And it may come down to really having almost like I don't know, a lot of people have used the spend-a-dot activities where you're given so many dots and you have to choose where those are going to go. It's really hard to get 20 people to come to consensus on especially some really difficult recommendations. The January town halls will conclude prior to the last School Consolidation Advisory Committee meeting so that that information can be provided to them as well as to the board. The January 27th will also be a workshop style meeting is what we expect to finalize recommendations and writing of the report. The potential special board meeting, we would like, it'll come to you for action at another time. We are looking for February 5th for presentation of the report, recommendations, and the public hearing. Then a potential special board meeting, hopefully February 19th for board action. And after that would be announcements to the community regarding those actions. So it is a very difficult timeline. These recommendations and the ultimate decision by the board are not easy. It is hard for our community, and we understand that we are all going to be going through that grieving process, which understandably includes anger and denial, and it's painful. And so I am sorry that that is the process that we need to go through, but in the long term, we are looking towards fiscal stability and being able to offer richer programs in the future.
Thank you. And I do have a significant amount of public comment cards on this item, so I'm going to get to public comment. Again, folks, you have 90 seconds to comment. I'm going to call out 3 names at a time. When I call out your name, please go to one of the podiums. And we'll start off with Abigail Merhel, followed by Amy Merkel, followed by Erica Lipinovich. Abigail Merkel.
Hello, my name is Abigail Merkel and I'm a sophomore attending Montgomery. Not only is Monty's history so rich, but its future is so bright. Monty has been through many ups and downs, especially after the tragedy of spring 2023. If a death of a student were to take place at a different high school, do you think the reaction would have been the same? No, it wouldn't have. No other school would have been able to come together and support each other in the toughest times, because the people at Montgomery are what make Monty Monty. Closing Monty would be separating our community, a community where so many have worked so tirelessly to build a support system, a community where so many have come together to celebrate our similarities and differences, a community that thrives with social, economic, ethnic, and academic diversity. After all the loss that Monty has faced, we have gained so much. We have gained something that's more than a statistic used to decide if a school should stay or go will ever be. After constantly being inspected by the press, fighting to be heard, and trying to defend the rumors and reputation put on Monty, we have never let go of what separates us from the rest. Our power is in our people and will continue to shine through the many more obstacles we will go through. Monty has proven its strength through its overpopulating clubs such as Fresh Start, Bring Change to Mind, Best Buddies, BSU, MECHA, and many more that all focus on uplifting each other. Our sporting teams have become a family to athletes. Courses and extracurriculars such as band, drama, ASB, yearbook choir all add up to the bigger picture of Monty. School is a place of learning, but it's also a place of growth. Monty has grown tremendously over the past couple of years that have been brought together by community. I can learn anywhere, but can I grow anywhere? Not just as a student, but as a person. Monty's community challenges us to be the
Thank
best
you,
versions.
Abigail. Your time's up. Next, I have Amy Merkel, followed by Erica Lipinovich, followed by Karen S. Amy?
I'm here to highlight a few unique features of Montgomery High School. Demographic makeup is most aligned with the overall district, with 48% of the student body being unduplicated. 42% are from a socioeconomic disadvantaged background. If you paid your property taxes this week, you saw that there were 3 bonds for the Santa Rosa High District, one from 02, 14, and 2022. Measure C, part of the 2022 bond, is the money that is being used to pay for the new building at Montgomery, which is designated for students with 17 classrooms and 2 science labs. The International Baccalaureate program has been at Monty for 29 years. It's the only IB high school in Sonoma, Marin, and Napa counties. Next year, it will launch the IB school-wide initiative where every junior and senior will take an IB class. There are 40 teachers at Monty who are trained in the IB curriculum. If IB were moved to another site, it would have to go through the IB approval process, which is similar to WASC. And it would cost about $2,500 to train any new student for the program. Student engagement is really high, and when students feel connected to their school, they are more likely to succeed. According to the school performance overview, Monty is the only high school in the green for graduation rates in the district. Almost 25% of the student body participated in a fall or winter sport, and there are 7 more coming in the spring. There are 34 clubs at Monty with an estimated 400 students participating in Best Buddies, Ecovites, the Asian Culture Club, and STEM. These are
Thank
all
you,
unique
Amy.
features that need to be.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next, I have Erica Lipinovich, followed by Karen S., followed by Meg Peterson. Erica?
Thank you. Esteemed board, at the last meeting, I spoke about the Consolidation Committee's decision to remove the academic criterion from regarding academic performance. Please allow me the opportunity to explain to you why this decision personally affected me so deeply. I come from immigrant parents. My mother's family was from Mexico. My father was born in Guatemala. His earliest memories were living with his mom, a single woman who could barely afford a small 1-room home with a dirt floor and a straw roof. Despite the odds, my grandmother moved with her son to the United States with the hopes that she could provide him a better life. As a single mother with no more than a 6th grade education, her opportunities for employment were limited to cleaning hotels, cleaning homes. So she understood that education was the way to lift her family up. It was for this reason that she stressed the importance of prioritizing her son's academics. It was his emphasis on academics that saved him from the gangs of Los Angeles and enabled him to be the first person in his family to graduate from high school, then college, and then medical school. I understand that test scores don't show the full story, and the decision was made specifically to benefit the disadvantaged communities of Santa Rosa. But when the committee voted to remove this criteria, it felt like they were saying academics are a luxury that only the privileged and affluent communities of Santa Rosa can afford, and that disadvantaged communities would rather see their failing schools stay open than move to another school.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next, I have Karen S., followed by Meg Peterson, followed by Hannah Moreo. Karen S. If you could state your full name for the record, please.
I'm sorry?
If you could state your full name for the record.
Oh, Karen Sanders.
Thank you.
Here are key points from Attorney General Bonta's memo that the School Consolidation Advisory Committee is choosing to ignore by arbitrarily eliminating the academics criteria from their process. Quote, studies show that schools chosen for closure are sometimes not the lowest performing schools, but that students only benefit from school closures if they are reassigned to higher performing schools. Higher quality schools are often in high demand, over-enrolled, and/or not accessible to students from displaced schools, so students in a closing school do not benefit. To improve equitable educational opportunities and abide by the legal mandate to alleviate segregation, all districts should proactively plan for displaced students to access higher quality educational opportunities. Priority access should be thoughtfully designed to give students a realistic chance of enrolling in known, high-quality, and college preparatory schools. In closing, AG Bonta states a transparent and community-centered process can help ensure an end result that reflects the community's interests. Eliminating academics is not in the community's interests.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Next, I have Meg Peterson, followed by Hannah Moreo, followed by Noel Tamba. Meg?
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Last time I spoke about being an intra-district transfer family who benefited from the open enrollment provided by Santa Rosa City Schools. This is unique to Santa Rosa City Schools and helps provide equity to families who do live in lower socioeconomic parts of our town to be able to attend schools in other neighborhoods should we see that it fits the needs of our students. The past several weeks have allowed me to dig more into the data provided to your school consolidation committee and at past board meetings. Something that was glaring to me was the lack of looking into retention rates and attraction for transfer students. How can you equitably say that closing a elementary school that has a 72% retention rate of neighborhood kids, which is the highest out of all of your elementary schools, and also attracts the most transfer students, is more equitable than closing an elementary school that only retains 55% of its neighborhood students and accounts for the largest part of students transferring out of that neighborhood school. Likewise, at a middle school that has 98% retention rates and accounts for over 50% of middle school transfer students, or a high school that has 98% retention rates and accounts for so many open enrollment requests, you can't
Your
even
time
fulfill
is
them.
up. Thank you. Next, I have Hannah Moreo, followed by Noel Tamba, followed by David Shen. Hannah?
Hi, I'm Hannah Moreo, and I'm here to speak about the school that I went to. I currently live in Rincon Valley, and I graduated from Elsie Allen High School. I'd like to take us back, you might remember this, Omar Medina, to November 1994, only a few months after Elsie Allen opened. You can go online and search for a Press Democrat article, which has a quote about students getting to our school. Paraphrased here, you either tromp through the mud and get muddy, or walk in the street and hope the cars don't hit you. 4 years later, in December 1998, an Elson Allen student was struck by a motorist. He was walking home after school in the dark after it rained, trying to stay out of the mud. That student died from that collision. This is something that is very familiar to a lot of people in the Southwest, the community, is that we are overlooked and don't have basic infrastructure, basic care, basic funding. It's hard to hear a huge section of the city talk about how they will be impacted losing the valuable enrichment programs they have when you are a student who doesn't have a safe way to walk to school. Our parents went out and put pallets in the mud so that we could walk safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. And that student's name was Patrick Scott. Next, we have Noel Tamba, David Shen, and Sarah Drillick. Noel Tamba,
I'm right here.
go ahead.
I would like to respectfully request that the board, in a closed session with legal counsel present, agendize and review all potential and actual conflicts of interest for the current and new trustees in relation to the closure of schools. It has come to my attention, there's an inherent conflict of interest that should give rise to the recusal of at least one trustee. President Medina is employed by LC Allen Foundation as a full-time employee, and he's the only full-time employee of the entity. The LC Allen Foundation is an independent nonprofit, but it is directly tied to LC Allen High School, thereby creating an inherent conflict of interest for President Medina. This employment directly impacts his ability to make an impartial decision related to closure of schools, when the result and the decision has the ability to directly impact his personal employment. President Medina should have no choice but to recuse himself from the vote, as well as all commentary and discussions in the choice of schools that will be forced to close due to this fiscal crisis. Failure to do so would result in the potential for legal action against the board and Santa Rosa City Schools in navigating this already difficult process, adding both to the cost and creating new unnecessary uncertainty for students and families of the district. There is potentially other trustees that also will have conflicts. Having legal counsel present and doing this in a closed session with this advice of counsel should be done and completed as soon as possible.
Thank you. And just for transparency, I'll add our legal counsel is already looking into my situation. David Shen, followed by Sarah Drillick, followed by Diego R. Oh, Diego. David?
Good evening, Mr. President, trustees, and the Superintendent, Dr. Morales. Our community is facing a very difficult and challenging times. And because of the mismanagement of the previous or the existing admin and the board members, we are now facing a $20 or even $25 million budget deficit. Something went wrong terribly because you had not listened to the community, have their inputs. Now, when we're facing the difficult time to determine which schools to close, the most important criteria is to be evaluated is the 25. However, you choose to ignore the 3 academic-related criteria. That's wrong. Do not make another mistake. Put it back. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next, I have Sarah. Next, I have Sarah Drillich, followed by Diego Arguello, followed by Laura Fry. Sarah?
Hi, my name's Sarah Derlick. Good evening, members of the board and Santa Rosa City Schools. I went to the LCAP meeting at Pioneer on the 4th, and I asked some questions because I'm concerned that the board can't make informed decisions by ignoring facts. I asked how the School Consolidation Advisory Committee was formed and how to get information on that. I asked if I could move forward with the assumption that all areas from our school district were equally represented in this committee, and I was told no. I asked how to get more information about that, and I was told that I could file a Public Records Act request, and I have done that. I have not received a response. I think you have 9 days. I think you can ask for an extension. I'm wondering if anybody in the room would also like access to that information once I get it. I'm also concerned about your decision to cut funds from special education. Your district is historically not compliant with special education needs. You are currently under investigation from the Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, and that costs our district a lot of money. So I will be making another record.
Thank you. Your
request.
time is up.
Thank you.
Next, I have Diego Arguello, followed by Laura Fry, followed by Brianna Lara. Diego?
The fact that we even have to discuss school closures is honestly just a travesty in itself. I see many faces that I know and many faces I don't know. But I mostly see school spirit from Maria Carrillo to Elsie, SRCS, pretty much every single school in the district. They're all afraid that their futures and the future for their siblings, their friends, and all that will get ruined. They'll be destroyed. The fact is that we have to even discuss this honestly makes your credibility as board members even lower. The community has lost faith in you. They have lost all credibility of your actions and all that. For them, you are liars. You are liars. And it breaks my heart that's even though I'm going to graduate this year, see many of my friends and all the other people that are showing up here, fearing that their school might have to be closed is honestly just sad. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, especially to have a sibling who is a sophomore. And knowing that if my school gets closed, it'll be harder for her to get an education. Think about that when you go to bed tonight. Think about your actions and think about the many people you are hurting. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Next, I have Laura Fry, followed by Brianna Lara, followed by Mickey Parker. Laura?
Hi, my name is Laura Fry. I have 2 students at Creo, and I'm here to ask the board to keep all the high schools open in our district. The current 9th through 11th graders are the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders who lost a year and a half of normal school due to COVID closures. They're the kids who are woken up in the middle of the night to evacuate for wildfires. Let's not add another trauma to the list. Everybody knows you don't make a major change when your kid's in high school because the mental health risks are too high, not to mention the academic and professional ones. And I'm not just talking about getting into college, I'm talking about the kids who need to be ready to work a full-time job upon graduation. I understand there's a sentiment that certain student bodies may be better able to handle a high school closure than others, but the truth is the negative risk is equal to all. The New York Times published an article this past July about the negative impacts of multiple moves in childhood and long-term depression into adulthood. And I'm going to make the argument that closing a high school in the middle of your high school career is equal to the impact of a move. And the most surprising thing about this study was not that it led to depression, but that it didn't matter the socioeconomic status of the kids impacted. In fact, the author of the study stated in the article, even if you come from a rich neighborhood, your chances of depression are higher than if you hadn't moved at all and had come from the poorest neighborhood. Let's do right by our high schoolers. At the very least, let's honor the current 9th through 11th graders. Let them finish out their high school career. And please, at the very
Thank
least,
you.
look into a closure.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next, I have Brianna Lara. Brianna Lara, followed by Mickey Parker, followed by Dulce Rodriguez. Brianna?
Hi, my name is Brianna Lara, and I'm currently a senior at LC Allen. And even though I won't be there next year, I wanted to advocate on its behalf. I think LC Allen is a community. I began LC Allen, but I transferred from Santa Rosa High. LCU has welcomed me with open arms. Even though I didn't have friends at the time, I felt safe and cared by the staff. I was able to find a support system, and I wasn't able to find at other schools, where culture is an afterthought at other schools, and it's the center of LC's mission. This is apparent in the art around campus, school events, and special programs. Being at LC Allen has given me the opportunity to be part of the Counseling Enrich program that has supported me in my path to graduation. I couldn't have done it without them. This program, along with the ESN program, are not considered in its criteria, being by the consolidation committee, even though it would be traumatic for these students to move schools. Overall, I'm extremely grateful and proud to attend LC, and I hope you all take into special programs like CEP that future generations have an opportunity to be a part of them.
Thank you, Brianna. Next, I have Mickey Parker, followed by Dulce Rodriguez, followed by Michelle Crosby. Mickey? Mickey Parker? Okay, if not, we'll move on to Dulce Rodriguez. Dulce here? All right, then we got Michelle Crosby, followed by Jeff Gosby, followed by Dirk Shermer. Michelle?
My name is Michelle Crosby, and I'm here to support Santa Rosa High School. I'm a proud alumni, class of 1996, who went to the JC and graduated from San Diego State. I have a current junior daughter in our cross dance program. I fear that the district will not be able to cover the deficit because the savings from closing the school will be diminished by families and students leaving the district. It's already starting. Families chose middle schools with a path to a high school. And with all the uncertainty in our community right now, families are choosing to leave the district now and establish their place in another district. You will lose more families and students if you close any of the 5 high schools. My prediction is at least 50% of families will leave the district. This is not factored into any of the charts or analysis happening with the committee. I implore the board to consider other scenarios. Keep the high schools open, consider establishing K-8 schools, or even consider a K-12 school, exploring the development of an online school, meeting the students where they are when they don't want a traditional classroom experience. It feels as though the state recommended best practices is just the cookie cutter approach. Declining enrollment started 10 years ago, and unfortunately, the tough conversations were not happening. And instead of right-sizing the district over the last 10 years, you are now faced with a bigger problem that is going to gravely impact our community. Santa Rosa High is so much more than what the charts present and the data you see. You have strong programs, agriculture, career technical programs, the ArtQuest program. To close or try to move any of these programs would fracture the foundation that has contributed and developed so many
Thank
students
you.
who go to pursue.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next, I have Jeff Gosby, followed by Dirk Shermer, followed by Camila Salazar. Jeff?
Yeah. My name is Jeff Gosby, and I'm a lifelong resident of the district in Santa Rosa, and all 3 of my children went through district schools. These comments reflect my opinion alone and are not reflective of my term as a member of the Rincon Valley School Board or the 7 years I've been on the Budget Advisory Committee. You must take decisive action to make deep cuts, because if you don't, in a year or two, the state will take over and decisions will be outside our local control, made by outsiders based mainly on math. You must also make the leap to operating with a minimum 10% reserve to have more capacity to handle crises in the future. I guarantee you there will be more crises. While making major ongoing cuts that start for the next school year, I want to encourage the incoming board to make decisions based on a long-term vision grounded in what's best educationally for students. I strongly encourage you to reach out to neighboring districts to find long-term educational solutions for the community of Santa Rosa as a whole. As an example, when consolidating schools, you should seriously consider expanding our middle schools to grades 6, 7, and 8. This better corresponds to educational curriculum and the social emotional needs of kids. And you use available capacity at your middle school and no longer turning over half their student body every year. You can't do this alone, and it can't be done by feeder districts on their own. We did this in Rincon Valley 5 years ago. Until you have a
Thank you,
vision of
Jeff.
what
Your
you're
time is
moving
up.
to.
Thank you, Jeff. Your time is up. Next, I have Dick Shermer, followed by Camila Salazar, followed by Adina Flores. Dirk Shermer.
Hi, Dirk Shermer for the record. My wife and I grew up in Santa Rosa when a large reorganizing of the boundaries was instituted. Siblings were split up between high schools at different sides of town. Student and peer groups were disrupted. Transportation was lacking for working families. These peer groups are vital for student and parenting success. I would ask, as opposed to what Jeff was suggesting, consider closing all the middle schools. We could then repopulate the elementary schools in all elementary districts with 7th graders and repopulate the high schools with 8th graders. This would keep peer groups and families together and preserve all the important specialty programs which seem to be mostly located at the elementary campuses. This would be an equitable distribution of a little bit of pain to everybody and not devastating to one particular part of our community. It would most importantly preserve the social equity programs already in place in many of the schools. The junior high sites could be sold, and the assets would then provide an important source of reserves and funding for the organization, redistricting itself, and for better programs moving forward.
Thank you. Next, I have Camila Salazar, followed by Adina Flores, followed by Catherine Riddell. Camila?
My name is Camila Salazar, and I'm a former cheerleader at Maria Carrillo High School and current cheer coach. I'm here with a statement from current cheerleaders at the high school. The Maria Carrillo High School cheerleading team is deeply saddened and concerned by the potential closure of our school. This decision would not only impact the futures of students who depend on its programs, but would also dismantle a cheerleading program that is truly one of a kind in our district. Maria Carrillo cheerleading is unlike any other program in the area. Our team consistently performs at an advanced level of difficulty, setting us apart from other local teams. However, the true value of our program lies in the bonds we create and the impact it has on its members. For many of us, cheerleading provides a sense of purpose, structure, and motivation that keeps us focused on our goals. It has helped team members develop essential life skills, overcome personal challenges, and form lasting connections that extend far beyond the gym. What makes this even more remarkable is how much the program has grown in such a short amount of time. The cheer program at Carrillo has only been operating at this advanced and competitive level for 3 years, and in that time, it has become a space where girls can learn, grow, and achieve. To stunt its growth now would be a disservice. If this level of success has been achieved in just 3 years, imagine what we could accomplish with more time. More than just an activity, cheerleading at Maria Carrillo is a launchpad for the future. It has opened doors for higher education that were never imagined to be possible for these girls. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Adina Flores, followed by Catherine Riddell, followed by Shinshu. Adina?
Good evening. I am the former executive assistant to this board who just won my settlement. So I'd like you to understand why these decisions are being made. The reason that we're closing schools is due to a lack of enrollment, which leads to also a lack of funding. That being said, I would hate to see Elsie Allen closed. I just attended a tribal council meeting and the Native Americans are extremely upset when we preach equity that we're going to be closing a school that represents our BIPOC students primarily. That's really upsetting. We have a foundation, Elsie Allen High School Foundation. Principal Abavera does a phenomenal job. However, I have no idea where that funding is going that could go towards keeping that school open or helping in some way. Mr. Medina, as you admitted at a previous meeting, you're still under investigation with the state. The foundation received $2 million. And why are students coming to me to tell me they never got their scholarship money? Where is it going? And secondly, I've had several, at least 4 whistleblowers come forward to me from Child Nutrition Services to state that they've been asking for equipment for their school sites that was denied and actually legally required pertaining to keeping food fresh and having it not be expired before we serve it to the students. So why are they being denied equipment? It's as
Keep
if
it
the
pertaining
board
to
knew that
disclosures.
these schools were going to be used. Why are you cutting my mic? Use the commission as a scapegoat. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Next, I have Catherine Riddell. Catherine Riddell, followed by Shinzu, followed by Shi Wang. Catherine?
Hi, I'm Catherine Rideout. At the last board meeting, some of the members cited the California Attorney General's guidelines as reasons to exclude academics from consideration in their decision for school closures. Another public comment quoted the Attorney General's guidance and educational code, which, by the way, is on page 4, paragraph 2, that shows this statement was inaccurate. I would like to add, data over the last decade shows school closures, regardless of which are closed, impact student performance. This is an absenteeism, which should be in particular importance to you since that's tied to funding. It also increases disciplinary action of students in the following 3 years. They're less likely to attend college, 5% less likely to attend college, complete college, 1.3% less likely to be employed, had incomes 3.7% lower. These are all kids who went through school closures. That's their outcomes. Minority and lower socioeconomic status students see this more. But there is an evidence-based way to prevent it, and that is to close middle schools instead. I would like to point out, no one in any of the board meeting has been like, save my middle school. Everyone loves their elementary schools. Everyone loves their high schools, right? But there's been a number of case examples and actual empiric evidence that shows if you go to a K-8 and then 9 through 12 or K-6 and then 7 through 12 model, that's actually better for students. There's lots of data to show middle school has failed as an experiment.
Thank you. Your time's up. Next, I have Chin-Su, followed by Shi Wang, followed by, I think it's Weksai Shi. Chin-Su?
Yeah, my name is Shin Shui. Good evening. I appreciate the leaders and the board members that you show that you cares. And one of the board member led the inhale and the exhale practice. I'm sorry, that doesn't help because that doesn't solve any problem. Okay, so I understand there are emotions here. And in such time, I urge you to remain rational and uphold the principles of fairness as you provide recommendation of closure of the schools, okay? Unfortunately, I have noticed some significant issues with the evaluation criteria that you are using. Okay, there are some clear mistakes. For instance, there's one criterion number 8, focus on the retrospective cost, which is also called a sunk cost, which is irrelevant in future decision-making. Okay, focusing on sunk costs will likely lead to incorrect decisions. And that's not the only one. In addition, many criteria are related or even redundant. Okay, so such as those on capacity and the facilities, I hope you don't simply add them up. That will lead to a wrong decision, okay? I feel more concerns when I learned that the criterion on student academic performance were excluded. And there's no criterion evaluating teaching quality. You're not adding any of them. This is unfair to the students and the families who want their children to receive a quality education and succeed academically. Okay, so I hope the Board of Education can find a better way to save operating costs.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next, I have Shiji Wang, followed by Wexei Shi, followed by Kristen Lavely. Shiyu?
Hello, my name is Shi Wang. Thank you for having me. I want to talk about our concern about the criteria of the school closure. Since this is a so important decision, I believe we should have a complete and a balanced criteria. If we don't have that, as mentioned, all the education quality and academic performance criteria were selectively, explicitly removed from the scoring metrics. I don't understand, I don't agree. I think that's very important because that could lead to a very unfortunate situation. That is, after the school closures, we will lose our competitive of the district. We don't want to lose students to other districts. But to be honest, if we close the best school, especially the high school in the town, there will be many, many students leaving the district. My family will definitely leave. I talked to about 10 families. They will leave the district for sure, and they may leave the city. That's also one thing for the city. You are not making a decision for solving the budget issue, but you are reshape the portfolio of Santa Rosa. If this city doesn't have a good education resource, many families will leave the city, and eventually that will impact the families that need help because there will be less job opportunities in the city. That's a very big issue. So please reconsider.
Thank you. Next, I have Wexei Shi. Wexei Shi, followed by Kristen Lavely, followed by, let's see, Brian Mills. No? Okay, Kristen Lavely.
My name is Kristen Labley. I am proud to be a Creo parent and an RVMS parent, and my daughter is a junior at Creo. I have gotten to really enjoy being part of our music program there, and we've had a lot of discussion about academics, and I agree academics are incredibly important. And I would like you to know about our music program. I feel like we need to shine some light on it. It is the Encore Visual and Performing Arts program, and it really provides another wonderful diversity to our education. It consists of 30 different fine arts classes ranging from instrumental music, choir, theater, dance, arts, taught by 7 faculty. We have honors level and AP classes. Get this, the estimated population of students that attend Encore is 900 students, 56% of the population of our school. It is the largest instrumental program in the North Bay, as well as the largest public orchestra in the North Bay. Our choral groups, jazz and honors wind, for 1 to 2 decades have consistently earned the highest rating of all the competitions. So we are a very rich program as far as talent, and we recruit from all around the area. We have the only
Thank you.
mariachi class.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Next, I have Brian Mills, followed by Makey Parker, followed by, I'm going to recall Dulce Rodriguez. So Brian Mills.
Yes, good evening. My name is Brian Mills. I wanted to recite for the room and for the board, straight from the California Board of Education, the vision, mission, and goals of the California Board of Education. Vision: all California students of the 21st century will attain the highest level of academic knowledge, applied learning, and performance skills to ensure fulfilling personal lives and careers and contribute to civic and economic progress. Mission: create strong, effective schools that provide a wholesome learning environment through incentives that cause a high standard of student accomplishment as measured by a valid, reliable accountability system. Goals: standards: adopt and support rigorous academic content and performance standards in the 4 core subjects for kindergarten grades 1 through 12. Achievement: ensure that all students are performing at grade level or higher, particularly in reading and math, at the end of each school year, recognize that a small number of exceptional needs of students must be expected, challenged, and assisted to achieve as individually determined and appropriately at that level. Assessment. Maintain policies ensuring that all students receive the same nationally normed and standard-based assessments, grade 2 through 11, again, to recognize that a small number of exceptional needs students may be separately individually assessed. It is within the mission statement and goals of the California Board of Education that standards be the top priority of the performance level of our schools. You therefore cannot leave it out as an assessment criteria for if a school should be kept or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Makey Parker. Are you here? Makey Parker. Dulce Rodriguez. Oh, Parker? Maybe. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Makai Parker. I am a part of the Counseling Enrichment Program at LC Island High School. I've been attending LC Island High School for 2 months, and I've grown accustomed to the school as a new transfer student, and I don't want to change schools already. This school has been going well for me because I am part of the Counseling Enrichment Program, or CEP for short. This program has helped me get accustomed to the school, LC Island. This program has also helped me perform better in classrooms and in the school in general.
Thank you. The last call for Dulce Rodriguez and Wei Shi. Either of you here? What's your name? Okay, and up here, are you Dulce? Go ahead.
His teacher, and I was going to speak on her behalf, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, it's actually Dulce's birthday tonight, so just wanted to wish her a happy birthday. She was here but had to leave early. This is her brief statement that I wanted to share. I feel that since we are students, we have a different perspective, and we are fighting for the school board to acknowledge us. Our school's mental health is skyrocketing through the roof with nowhere for it to land. There are kids with depression, anxiety, ADHD, etc., who are struggling to get through school every day. And if the board closes LC Allen and our mental health, our counseling enriched classes will be uprooted that help kids in need and make sure they are able to graduate. I want to emphasize that there are 2 counseling enriched programs on the LC Allen campus. These classrooms serve students with trauma and severe emotional and behavioral needs. This is statistically the most marginalized demographic of students overall, not just within the district, but overall. Uprooting these classrooms and moving them would be traumatic specifically to these students. And I want to recognize that these 2 classrooms on LC's campus are not included in the criteria for special programs that the School Consolidation Committee is taking into consideration. And they definitely should be. These are our most in-need students, and they should have special emphasis and be highlighted in these meetings, which they are not. Thank you.
Could you add your name for the record as well? I said, could you please also add your name for the record?
My name is Mel Debray. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also got Linda Aguilar. Last card from Linda Aguilar. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Aguilar. I don't have a prepared speech. I graduated from Santa Rosa High School. I'm a retired nurse graduating from Santa Rosa Junior College's School of Nursing. I'm also blessed to be the granddaughter of Elsie Allen. When she had her name submitted, which none of my family knew, it was an honor to have the first Indigenous woman up against Luther Burbank, Jack London, and I don't remember the other gentleman. It is such a heartwarming experience to see all the students here expressing their deep concern about their schools. My concern is that we are all standing on Pomo land, and it was an honor to have that school named after one of the master basket weavers. And I would advise most of the students that go there don't know the history of why my grandmother was chosen. Google her. And she's the reason why culturally we have an exchange with our art through our baskets. Our family display is on the Intercultural Museum at Santa Rosa Junior College. I would urge the board to look at equity, diversity, and figure out what's happening with the money. It's nothing new. And may Creator bless us all during these chaotic times.
Thank you. And that is all the comments. That is all the comments we have on this item. Thank you, Lisa. Before we move on to our F discussion items, I just wanted to add an event that was highlighted that was missed when school performances were being announced. Montgomery High School's drama production of Salvation Road, it's the 12th, 13th, and 14th at 7 p.m. And as well as their holiday concert, which will be next Thursday, December 19th at 7 p.m. at the Cinema Academy Theater. So now we will be moving on to our discussion and action items. Our first item is the approval of resolution recognizing Santa Rosa City Schools as a safe haven school district. And that comes up to me. So just a little background on this. After the current president-elect in his first election back in 2016, after that, there was a lot of rhetoric that really caused and created a lot of fear, especially amongst our undocumented communities. This board back then, I think the only one that was here then is maybe Trustee Sheffield, passed a resolution, I believe it was January 11th of 2017, calling for Santa Rosa City Schools to be a safe haven district. We are now bringing back that resolution to reaffirm our commitment to have Santa Rosa City Schools be a safe haven district and adding some additional language to ask our superintendent to make this policy and to ensure that our staff are trained on what to do in situations that arise that could impact our families. And again, to ensure that families feel safe coming to school, to address the fear, especially as the rhetoric around the issue of immigration continues to get worse and cause fear amongst our families. So I'll pass it on to our superintendent for comment.
Yes, we're wholeheartedly behind this resolution, and I'm glad that our union partners also mentioned it. I will be working with our cabinet team and our leadership team to put together protocols and procedures that our principals could follow, as well as our front office staff. And I'll be working with the team to also turn it into a board policy that will appear along with all of our policies online. So that should be done hopefully by the next board meeting.
Oh, I'll open it up to the board for any questions or comments. Trustee de la Cruz.
Thank you so much for bringing this forward. I want to acknowledge the beautiful leadership that's in the audience of folks who are really stepping up on behalf of our immigrant community, students and families in our district. And those voices are so loud and beautiful and scream with so much pride to be seen and to be recognized with dignity throughout all of our systems. So I'm grateful for that organizing and for that perspective that they have brought to leaders throughout our community about the importance of making these kinds of statements, but not just statements, actual action. So I'm grateful that this board resolution actually does more than just resolve, that it actually turns into board policy. I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about the process because I feel like this resolution still needs a lot of work. And then the other thing that I just have a question about is we actually have state law that required our district by July of 2018 to have protocols and policies already throughout our systems to protect immigrant children and their families from their data being improperly released. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit about what's already inside of our systems that we're using. And then again, my second question is about what is the process that we're going to get from this resolution to an actual board policy?
So I'll invite Stacy Desderi if she is here still. If you could join us, talk about what kind of data is put in student records. So I will start us off in terms of whenever we enroll a student, we don't ask for any proof of citizenship. There's no social security number required. And any data that is needed of that type, if ever, is kept separate from their folders. And I'll have Stacy speak more to all of that goes in a student, what is known as a student queuing folder.
I'm more curious about what policies and procedures we have that we adopted pursuant to the state legislation in 2018 requiring us to have
And I'll let her speak. to that.
limiting our school's ability to cooperate in immigration enforcement actions. So what existing policy do we have currently in line with that legislative requirement? And then how are we going to bring that forward to kind of look at as a board as a whole about how we're going to update those policies into, you know, hopefully protocols that are already in place, but if they're not, then let's kind of talk about that too.
I would need to do a little bit of research because 2018 was before my time with the district. But we do not collect information on any students' residency status, their immigration status. When a student enrolls in our district, there are traditional pieces of information that we are required to collect. We need to collect a student's immunization records. That's one of the non-negotiables. We need to be able to determine where a student is living, so proof of residency. That can either be proven by sharing documentation about where their family lives, like a PG&E or a water bill, or an affidavit of cohabitation. If we have a family living with other families, we don't question or challenge. We just ask that there be a piece of paper signed by the owner of where the student is living, indicating that these people are living with me. One of the areas that is sometimes a little bit confused is the providing of a birth certificate. There's an assumption that every child must provide a birth certificate, and that's a little bit inaccurate. By education code, we are required to collect an affidavit of age. A birth certificate is one means of providing affidavit of age, as is a passport, as is baptismal records or hospital records, or a family can simply sign an affidavit of age, all of which are options. We have training for our community, our staff, our enrollment staff, about what some of the options for families are when they come to our schools. And our priority is immediate enrollment of all students without barriers. We work with staff when they have a unique situation. We even have some of our staff who are able to assist with either facilitating access to immunization records or assisting families with creating catch-up plans. So we have a very firm position with training at all sites on how to remove barriers from enrollment. When there are legal documents that are asked to be processed, they come to the district office for review. We don't have schools trying to manage information like subpoenas. That comes to the district so that we can protect our school campuses from being a place where documents are trying to be served.
Other questions, Trustee?
I guess, you know, what are the current protocols and processes in place that protect student and family data when they are being requested by federal agencies?
Any requests of records come again to the district office, and the first step that we do is we coordinate with our legal counsel, and we determine whether or not that request is something that the school will provide. FERPA has very specific policies about what kind of information can be shared. We have a policy of unless there is an emergent concern of somebody's safety, we don't provide any information short of a warrant or a Public Records Act or things like that. Even when something like an emergent situation might be happening, the only thing we are at liberty to release is directory information. There is no additional information without warrants and other pieces. And we don't make those decisions. We only act under the guidance of our legal counsel.
Okay, yeah, there's some really clear guidance that districts have to follow with regards to only assign judicial warrant, either a federal or a state judge, right? Or an actual subpoena, again, signed by a court. And so those are the kinds of, policies and procedures that I hope we also are very clear with our community about, to our students and our families to make sure that they also feel like we know how to protect that information and, address, location of certain families, of where students are living, because we have the ability and the responsibility to actually block that information unless it's being requested under these specific circumstances. That's, I think having some deeper clarity in the resolution that we adopt tonight, that's more than just kind of, the superintendent will develop policies and protocols, like to be more specific about exactly what those will be with regard to information requests, as well as the presence of ICE agents or of immigration, enforcement agencies in any capacity coming onto our campuses. So I also wanted to ask about that. What are the policies and procedures currently active in our district that protect against immigration enforcement activities happening on our campuses?
I'm not prepared to speak to the specific policies. I would need to do some research so that I can use the specific policies. But that is something that we can look into and report back.
Okay.
Yes, it's something we'll be updating because as I believe President Medina shared last Wednesday, the Attorney General updated all of the procedures for this coming year. And so we're going to be using that to update our current policies, and if there isn't any, make sure that there are.
The other question that I had was around the ways in which we are using this opportunity to strengthen the relationships that we have with community-based organization and specifically with immigration legal service providers to make sure that, students and families have the opportunity to develop, guardianship plans and other preparedness documents that sit within our system. To make sure that, in the case that enforcement activity is happening within a family, then there is some clarity and some ability to know where to go to get those resources. So I think, how we are making sure that those resources are communicated throughout our systems is really important in this. I also had some specific suggestions about language that I hope goes into this resolution that also solidifies for our community, right, that we're not making up new rights, right? We have California Constitution, Article 1, Section 28F1, right, that makes it very clear. There's Ed Code Sections 200 and 201 that are very clear anti-discrimination policies. And then throughout our resolution, we talk about the 2016 election, but our country did this again in 2024. And so I think just updating, specifically what happened in 2024, and that actually there is a much clearer plan in this second Trump administration and much clearer threats with a lot more capacity to actually make sure that they, happen. So we have Trump administration surrogates right now talking about shock and awe on the first day of his presidency. And so that means that we have to be, the urgency is now to really get ready for what it means on January 20th and 21st in our community, to really know that this is the best way to show, that we are prepared, that we're thoughtful, that we're taking care of our responsibilities as an institution. And that does so much to make sure that the fear and, the distress that's being felt throughout immigrant communities and certainly here, but all over the country, we can show that we're actually doing something about reducing that fear and making sure that we are very clear on our responsibilities. The other thing that I wanted to just lift up here is that, this board is contemplating a new memorandum of understanding with a law enforcement agency on our campuses. And as I have raised in the past, the presence of law enforcement increases the risks to immigrant families and children as a result just of by being in contact, right, by falling into the criminal justice system, we need to be very, very clear that any MOU that is entered into in this district requires law enforcement officers on our campuses to agree that they will not participate in any immigration, any participation in immigration enforcement. That falls outside of, the agreement that we may enter into with any future law enforcement agency. And I just want to raise that now because right now it's completely silent in our resolution or in any future policy. And I just want to tie those two things together because for this board, when we contemplated ending the MOU with SRPD, one of the main reasons was that we did not hear from that agency an ability to be culturally responsive in the way that it treated immigrant children and families when they came into contact with law enforcement. So I just want to make sure that that is really contemplated in an MOU.
So just because there was a lot there, are there specific resolves that you want to add to this one? Could you?
So
give me
there's
specific
an
language?
ACLU model policy that is kind of the gold standard that I would really hope that we are utilizing to strengthen this policy, as well as to be very clear on, all of the different ways in which our district can be continuing to sit in a place of leadership on this issue. So when our board adopted this in 2017, we were the first institution in our county to do so. I think that speaks a lot to, the importance and the recognition that we have in serving, arguably the largest population of immigrant children and their families in our entire county. And I love the way that this board has always stood up with that recognition with some pride and some responsibility in that. So again, if we're thinking about being the gold standard on this issue, the ACLU model policy, and there's a couple of different versions of that starting in 2018, where we really saw community-based organizations and institutions stepping up in this way.
But in terms of like what to put in this resolution, is there like a specific line that I could add to it? Or
So-
under one of these resolved further, or a whole separate one that you would like to maybe recommend as an amendment?
Let's see.
I just don't want it to get lost.
Yep. I sent you, President Medina, the Vallejo example. And the Vallejo example has, whereas the California Constitution, Article 1, Section 28, F1 provides, quote, all students and staff of public primary, elementary, junior high, and senior high schools, and community colleges, and universities have the inalienable right to attend campuses which are safe, secure, and peaceful. And then whereas the California Education Code Section 200 provides, it is the policy of the state of California to afford all persons in public schools, regardless of their disability, gender, gender identity, gender expression, nationality, race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or any other characteristic that is contained in the definition of hate crime set forth in Section 422.55 of Penal Code, et cetera, et cetera. So we can cite kind of California Ed Code Section 200. And I'll note that nationality includes citizenship, country of origin, and national origin. So that's how we kind of wrap in an anti-discrimination protections for immigrants. And then California Ed Code Section 201. I would ask that we add that whereas, where it just says all peoples have the right to participate fully in the educational process free from discrimination and harassment. And we have an affirmative obligation to combat racism, sexism, and other forms of bias. And then language specifically, around require provisions in any future MOU with a law enforcement agency that they shall not participate in immigration enforcement efforts on our campuses. And then with regards to ICE requests, I think it's, this is kind of towards the end of our resolution. So I think, and then it's just updating, I think it's the second to last whereas on page 1 of the resolution, updating it to say whereas the 2024 national presidential election.
November 5th, yeah.
And the very clear plans laid out in Project 2025 to wreak, pain and fear and damage to immigrant communities.
Is it within our purview right now to make a suggestion to have this resolution go back to a subcommittee so we can reevaluate and resubmit it for next week? Can we do
Next
that?
week is primarily organizing committee.
Is there something can we not?
Transition happens before any work is done.
Oh, your mic.
Yeah, so it would be the following board taking on this
Mm-hmm.
because we do the transition happens before any work done. And we are limiting it just to that transition meeting. So if this board wants to take action on it, it would need to happen today.
Trustee La Torre?
So I respect all the additions that have been suggested. They do seem a bit redundant because it's following Ed Code and California Constitution that we have to follow anyways. So it seems like it's adding a lot of information that's not readily available into a resolution that we're hoping to pass tonight. There's value to every one of those aspects, but I do agree with Director Flores that this really feels like it needs some more time to be properly vetted and thought through. And I don't think a resolution on this should be mentioning an MOU with law enforcement that we haven't even seen yet and hasn't been presented. So it'd be tying conditions to an MOU that we haven't even seen and reviewed yet. I'd like to, if we do move forward with this resolution, we stick to honoring our commitment to protecting immigrant students and families without trying to add too much in just because we're hoping to get it through with this current board.
So just really quick, I hear you, Trustee Flores. I think I have most of this language that Trustee La Cruz is adding because I'm just copying and pasting from the Vallejo resolution, the 3 whereases. The part that you recommended to address was changing, obviously, the election from 2016 to 2020. So all those references, right?
Mhm.
And
I'd like to add, and I can just read it into the record if possible. So that, whereas this board directs the superintendent and her designees to not cooperate with federal immigration authorities except as required by law, that we make it a very clear policy that this board stands against immigration enforcement on our campuses as well as cooperation. And then that we reaffirm the authority of the superintendent to protect the data and identities of any student, family members, or school employee, because these are also our employees who are immigrants, who may be adversely affected by any future policies or executive action that results in the collection of any personally identifiable information to the fullest extent provided by the law. And then, again, this is just for clarity for our community. So it's not just kind of letting the board know that ICE is on our campus as soon as possible, but it's just saying that be it further resolved or whereas should an immigration agent or request access to a school site, that we clearly authorize the superintendent and her designees to ask for the ICE agent's credentials, to ask an agent why they are requesting access to the school site, and then to demand a warrant, right, or a court order, a subpoena signed by a federal or state judge. And that, again, whereas district employees shall under no circumstances on their own respond verbally or in writing to any request made about the immigration status of any student or student's family, and shall refer any and all such requests about immigration status to the proper designee at the district office. So again, it's just this level of clarity to our community that I think will, again, make it clear and bring down that sense of fear right now, both for to our board about very clearly what the superintendent's authority already is under state law, but just reminding ourselves as an institution as well as our community, right, that we are really standing strongly in these rights and responsibilities to our community as a whole. And I'm happy to kind of throw this up on a screen so that, we vote as a board to include this language that I've cited. And, I completely agree with you, Trustee De La Torre, that, I'm not necessarily saying that in this resolution we shall agree or state that we're saying something about a future MOU that refuses to be negotiated while this board is in these seats. but that we are very clear in the future about the importance of needing to have that kind of information in an MOU around what our law enforcement partners agree to follow if, on the campuses in line with this board policy, right? That it needs to continue being enforced at multiple levels as we move forward as an institution.
So I got most of those. I just wasn't clear on that last part of the future MOU. Was there a line for that?
Can
about
I offer a
non-participation
suggestion
in-
on that?
Yeah, could you please?
I would like for it to say, be it further resolved that the district shall not enter into agreements with state or local law enforcement agencies or any federal agency to use district resources, including personnel, to conduct or support immigration enforcement activities. That's straight from the ACLU guidance.
You email me that real quick so that I could just copy and paste into here,
Do you want me to send it to you?
please.
No, I can send it to you.
Huh?
I can send it to you.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
And that way I'm gonna go through the whole resolution with all these amendments, in hopes that we can get to a vote. So go ahead and send that to me. And I'm gonna go ahead and go with the public comments and then we'll come back to this. Is that okay? So I have a few public comments on this. First, we got Amy Rico Tapia, followed by Ronnie Mar, followed by Erandi Hernandez Aguilar. Amy?
Hello, good evening. I'm Amy Rico Tapia, a senior at Santa Rosa High School, and I'm here on behalf of my safety and belonging cohort. We're a group of high school students in the Santa Rosa City School District, committed to creating a culture of safety in our schools. I want to start off by saying we students are the future, and right now we are afraid. We are the heart of our community, a community that includes every single one of us, regardless of our immigration status. We are here to demand something fundamental, safety in our schools. When we talk about safety, we are talking more than metal detectors or security guards. We are talking about feeling secure enough to learn, to grow, to dream. We are talking about safety from fear. For students of color, trans and non-binary students, students with immigrant families, safety means knowing that coming to school won't risk their family's stability. It means knowing that our parents won't be torn away from us because of our immigration status. It means feeling protected, not targeted. But right now, these families live in constant fear. Fear of deportation, fear of separation, fear that a simple task could mean losing everything. This fear doesn't just hurt families, it hurts all of us. When immigrant students and families are afraid to interact with law enforcement, when they are scared to report crimes or domestic violence, our entire community becomes less safe. We are asking you to take a stand. We thank you for reaffirming the Safe Haven resolution and ask that you push the county to pass the ordinance on dignity, health, and safety of Sonoma County immigrants. Ensure that no county agency will provide information to ICE that could lead deportation, protect our community's most vulnerable members.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next, I have Ronnie Mar, followed by Erandi Hernandez Aguilar and Chandri Bautista. Ronnie Mar?
Hello, everyone. I'm here to encourage the board to approve the Safe Haven resolution, as I believe schools should be the last place where a student has to fear of being stripped away from their home, community, and the life they've only known. Losing a relative, friend, classmate to deportation is a reality I hope our students never have to endure. By passing this resolution, also, I really want to echo the recommendations from De La Cruz and the reiteration of the MOU and ensuring that the police on campuses, whatever that agreement looks like, ensures that there is no collaboration with ICE, as that is a really big fear of the immigrant community. But yes, by passing this resolution, you're taking one of the first steps to prioritize the safety of all students, regardless of immigration status. And I'm really excited to hear what the procedures look like and what that will be reported back, so we can understand what it means to ensure safe haven, and passing this resolution instead of it being a symbolic gesture. We also don't know what to expect with this upcoming new administration, and it's time to get prepared now. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Erandi Hernandez Aguilar, followed by Chandri Bautista. Erandi?
Hi Kurini Erandi, hi Purepecha, hi Ireri Mecha de SRJC. Mi nombre es Erandi, soy Purepecha y la presidenta de Mecha de SRJC. Estoy aquí muy agradecida por los miembros de la mesa directiva que sí quieren pasar esta resolución Y también quiero anotar que la superintendente tiene la decisión final y creo que es importante que no deje que la migra llegue a los campus de las escuelas mencionado penúltimamente en la demanda en la versión de la resolución de 2017. También creo que esto es algo que es fundamental para que nuestras escuelas, incluyendo los edificios en los terrenos escolares, puedan actuar como refugios seguros en caso que estudiantes y individuos indocumentados estén sujetos a deportación. Les pido que este documento sea accesible en todos los idiomas a través de diferentes modos de comunicación, incluyendo las plataformas de comunicación con padres que utilicen el sitio web y las redes sociales. También les pido que utilicen un lenguaje inclusivo en su resolución que se comprometa a garantizar la protección de nuestra comunidad más vulnerable independientemente de su estatus migratorio, origen étnico, raza, religión, orientación sexual.
Gracias, Randy. ¿Quieres que traduzcan o lo puedes traducir?
I also have it in English.
Ok, ¿lo puedes decir en inglés, please? Gracias.
My name's Erandi. I'm the president of Metro de SRGC, and I'm really glad that the board members here are taking the action to reinstate the resolution. I think it's also important that we note that the superintendent has the last call in deciding whether ICE goes onto campus or not, as mentioned earlier by the judicial warrant. And I think it's also important that we note that in the second and third to last demands in the 2017 version of the resolution, it states that the board should not allow ICE onto school campuses. And I think it's also important that we pass this resolution as it's critical that our schools, including facilities and material property on school grounds, can act as safe refuge in the event that undocumented students and individuals are subject to deportation. Please make sure that the document is accessible in all languages through different modes of communication, including platforms of parent communication, such as the website and social media. I also urge that you utilize inclusive language in your resolution that commits to ensuring the protection of our most vulnerable and marginalized communities, regardless of their immigration status, ethnicity, race, religion, sexual orientation, ability, sex and gender identity, socioeconomic statuses, or beliefs. Help us strengthen our protections to our undocumented community because it's your students, families, and most vulnerable community members who will suffer for it if elected officials don't take action. Kanekwa Korawapiri Mayamu.
Thank you. Next, I have Chandri Batista.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. No me veo because I'm short, sorry. But my name's Khandri, my pronouns are they, them. I'm with the Immigrant Defense Task Force. I am also working with Raíces Colectiva, which has me crossing into the grounds of Santa Rosa City Schools. I'm here to echo what was mentioned, that the superintendent does have that last say in approving federal warrants and ICE and police agents, local and federal police agencies entering campus. So just want to put that on the table. I also do want to encourage the superintendent to take this conversation up to the SCO level and also further connect with other superintendents in the area. There's a lot of conversations happening with nearby districts reinforcing and reaffirming or incorporating their first safe haven resolutions. So I would encourage you as a superintendent who has voice and connection to further, amplify that networking and echo those voices. Two, I also want to encourage and demand language justice within the ways that campuses facilitate when ICE does come and when students, community, and faculty and staff are taking refuge. And I also do want to echo that policing in schools is the same conversation as this. Our local agency, the sheriff, has existing communication and relationships with ICE that further jeopardizes the safety of our immigrant undocumented population. We know that federal agents are not fully manned to carry out these orders.
Thank
and it
you,
will fall down on the
Chandri.
local police.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Can I just say something?
Okay, Superintendent Morales.
Sandri, I have your phone number, so I'll call you so that I can meet with all of you guys, okay?
And your emails are just loading, so I'm waiting on that end. Do you put on the mic? Three. Okay.
Sorry, so I'm just telling President Medina that I sent the whereases with regard to the California Constitution and the two ed code sections. And
I got
then
those from the
to be it
resolution.
further resolved, and then there's a couple of other statements in the resolution about, I think some of the things that we just heard from, our activistas in the House around recognizing the impact, the negative impact of law enforcement activity on our schools. So there's kind of three separate whereases around the impact of immigration enforcement on school campuses. And then there's the last suggestion that Trustee Magnetti said, which was that the district shall not enter into agreements with state or local law enforcement agencies, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and read what I have pending what I still haven't received, and then you guys let me know what I'm missing. No, can I put it on the screen?
Do you
No.
go to Zoom?
Okay, let me go to Zoom.
Share your document?
Yeah, I'm just gonna move it all into one document. No, it's not a Google Doc, it's Word doc, but I'm just gonna copy the existing resolution and then, yeah, just let me work this through real quick. PDFs don't work. Yeah, it's not working as easy as I hoped. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and go through it and then switch from screen to screen. We'll go, okay, share. God, I have so many windows open. Okay. Is that the right one? No, that's the wrong one. Okay. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go through here first. Start with what we have. So whereas the Santa Rosa City Schools Board of Education is committed to the success of all students irrespective of their immigration status, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, ability, sex and gender identity, socioeconomic status, or beliefs. Whereas the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America recognizes every individual's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Whereas the United States of America was built by diverse peoples, both native and immigrant alike. Whereas education has played a critical role in furthering tolerance and strengthening our society, whereas the United States Supreme Court held in Plyer v. Doe in 1982 that no public school district has a basis to deny children access to education based on their immigration status, citing the children have little control over their immigration status, the harm it would inflict on the child and society itself, and equal protection rights of the 14th Amendment. So after this whereas, we would go to these. Whereas the California Constitution, Article 1, Section 28F1 provides all students and staff of public, primary, elementary, junior high, and senior high schools and the community colleges and universities have the inalienable right to attend campuses which are safe, secure, and peaceful. Whereas the California Education Code, Section 200 provides it is a policy of the state of California to afford all persons in public schools, regardless of their disability, gender identity, gender expression, nationality, race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or any other characteristic that is contained in the definition of a hate crime set forth in Section 422.55 of the Penal Code, equal rights and opportunities in the educational institutions of the state, and per California Education Code, Section 212, nationality includes citizenship, country of origin, and national origin. Whereas the California Education Code, Section 201, provides all pupils have the right to participate in fully an educational process free from discrimination and harassment. B, California's public schools have an affirmative obligation to combat racism, sexism, and other forms of bias, and a responsibility to provide equal educational opportunity. Now we go back. And then whereas this would be changed to on November 5th, 2020, voters in California and across the nation participated in the democratic process by casting votes, whereas California voters during the 2020 general election expressed strong support for public schools. Oh, 2024, yeah, both of those 2024. Well, actually, this one would be 2016 because
Yeah,
the rest
I
is
don't know that we have the same, sadly, unless we can cite some strong support for public schools in this last election.
Okay, so should we remove this one?
I think we can just strike the whereas on that one.
Okay, so we'll remove that one. Whereas more than 50 different languages are spoken in Santa Rosa City Schools District, schools including Spanish, Vietnamese, Khmer, Mandarin, Tagalog, Tigrinya, Punjabi, and Lao. Whereas, are these updated figures? Okay, whereas 8,588 of 14,370 students in Center City schools are of Latina descent, 10,547 are students of color, and more than 72% of elementary and 56% of high school students qualify for free and reduced lunch. Whereas the 2024 national presidential election has resulted in thousands of students and families in Santa Rosa expressing heightened fear, sadness, and concerns for student safety as a result of particular rhetoric and promises made over the course of the presidential campaign. Whereas youth and families across this district have already experienced and reported increased levels of hate speech based on their ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation since the election. Now, therefore, be it resolved. Was there whereas that I was missing that was being provided?
Yeah, there were two whereases that three, where I say, whereas immigration arrests, detentions, and deportations affect families every day, and indications that deportations will increase dramatically has created a climate of heightened fear and anxiety for many students and their families. Whereas immigration enforcement activities in and around schools severely disrupt the learning environment and educational setting for students. And whereas immigration enforcement activities around schools create hardships and barriers to health and educational attainment, and a pervasive climate of fear, conflict, and stress that affects all students in our district, regardless of their background or status.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we're back to here. So these, did I just copy and paste? No, I didn't copy and paste. These right here, right? Okay. So these are the three that you just read?
Mhm.
Okay. And then we go to resolve that Santa Rosa City Schools Board of Education directs the superintendent to support the creation of a safe haven school district. This status shall include designating Santa Rosa City school sites, facilities, and equipment as safe havens for further students, families, and community, allocating adequate resources necessary to support diversity, inclusion, and the values of a multicultural society, continuing to host trainings on cultural proficiency, equity, and unconscious bias in the district. Resolve further that Santa Rosa City Schools Board of Education will work closely with the city, county, and other state and local municipalities and community organizations to ensure our students and families are offered a protected space. Resolve further that the board reaffirms its focus on promoting and elevating tolerance, inclusiveness, and kindness of all students, families, and staff at all district school sites, facilities, and material property. Resolve further that
Can I
go ahead.
strike a word in there? Instead of tolerance, can we write acceptance?
Instead of tolerance, acceptance?
Yes, thank
What
you.
about belonging?
Okay, I like that.
Okay. Let me just copy this one because I can't edit it here. Yeah. Can somebody just take note of that one? Because I can't copy it and paste it into Word for some reason. So right here, we'll change that to belonging. So that the board reaffirms its focus on promoting and elevating belonging, inclusiveness, and kindness of all students, families, and staff at all district school sites, facilities, and material property. Resolved further that the board reaffirm the authority of the superintendent to protect the data and identities of any student, family member,
I think
or
before that one,
before that one.
President Medina, there were the two, be it resolved that the board directs the superintendent and her designees not to cooperate with federal immigration authorities except as required by law.
Okay, so these right here.
Yeah, and to notify parents of any immigration inquiry about their children that is submitted to the district. And then there's a second, be it further resolved that the board reaffirm the authority of the superintendent. Okay, that's in there. And then be it further resolved, the third one down there, should an immigration agent request access to a school site, that the board authorizes the superintendent.
Okay, so am I missing one of these right here?
The middle one is already in our resolution, apparently.
Oh,
The
this one?
second two, or like the first one and the third one, are not.
Okay, so we're adding these two. Am I missing another one?
Sorry, I'm not looking at the right.
Well, let me read these two just so we get them read in. Be it further resolved, should an immigration agent request access to a school site, the board authorizes the superintendent and or designee to ask for the ICE agent's credentials, ask the agent why he or she is requesting access to the school site, and ask to see a warrant signed by a federal or state judge. Be it further resolved.
So I just had a quick question. Did we already include that the board directs the superintendent and her designees not to cooperate with?
It's this next one right here. Be it further resolved that district employees shall under
No,
no
that's
circum-
not it. So there's
still
one
another
that I
one?
sent, which is just that, be it further resolved that the board directs the superintendent and her designees not to cooperate with federal immigration authorities.
Mhm.
Going right there, the one at the very bottom of that page too. Be it further resolved, the board directs the superintendent, you just passed it.
This one?
Last one on page 2,
Oh, page 2. Right here.
right there. And then that second sentence on page 3, yeah.
Will that replace?
That's a separate one. So it's like kind of one, and then we go into the board reaffirms the authority of the superintendent.
Yeah,
So I
this
actually
one
think
before.
that one is the first one. And then there's the be it further resolved. Yeah.
Okay. So be it further resolved that the board directs the superintendent and or designee to not cooperate with federal immigration authorities except as required by law, and to notify parents of any immigration inquiry about their children that is submitted to the district. Be it further resolved, should an immigration agent request access to a school site, the board authorizes the superintendent and or designee to ask for the ICE agent's credentials, ask the agent why he or she is requesting access to the school site, and ask to see a warrant signed by a federal or state judge. Be it further resolved, district employees shall under no circumstances respond verbally or in writing to any request about the immigration status of any student or any student's family, and shall refer any and all such requests about immigration status to the proper designee at the district office. And then where'd we leave off? I think here. I resolved that the board reaffirm the authority of the superintendent to protect the data and identities of any student, family member, or school employee who may be adversely affected by any future policies or executive action that results in the collection of any personally identifiable information to the fullest extent possible provided by the law. And be it finally, and be it further resolved further that the superintendent will develop protocols and procedures to train school personnel on how to address ICE agents that arrive at schools. The superintendent will notify the board as soon as possible when ICE is present at a school. Resolved further that the board reaffirms Center City Schools' unequivocal commitment to ensuring safe educational environment for all students serving as a safe haven school district for all students and families threatened by immigration enforcement or discrimination to the fullest extent provided by the law. And then the final one is, be it further resolved, the district, this is Trustee Manieri's recommendation. Be it further resolved, the district shall not enter into any agreements with state or local law enforcement agencies or any federal agency to use district resources, including personnel, to conduct or support immigration enforcement activities. This resolution shall become district policy upon adoption by the Board of Trustees. So that's the bulk of it. Is there further discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion on this recommendation?
I'd like to move to approve the amended resolution and board policy.
Second.
So there's a motion by Trustee De La Cruz. There's a second by Trustee Manieri. Is there discussion on the motion? Anybody? None? To the vote, please.
Student Board Member Zuniga.
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz.
Aye.
Trustee Manieri.
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield.
Aye.
Trustee McNally.
Aye.
Trustee De La Torre.
So I just want to state that I feel this is too important to have been workshopped live, especially if it's going into policy, and expect us to vote on this tonight. So I cannot in confidence affirm this resolution, as important as it is, but I cannot disrespect the importance of this with a denial. So I abstain.
Trustee Flores.
Aye.
President Medina.
Aye. Thank you. We will now move on to our next item on the agenda. Oh, I could stop sharing. So I'm now opening up the public hearing regarding, opening up the public hearing regarding District Santa Rosa Teachers Association contract reopeners, Sunshine for the 2025/2027 school year. Is that Superintendent Zan's assistant?
Okay, so this is just for the public hearing. So you are actually opening the public hearing in regards to reopeners for 24 or 26, 25, 26, and 26, 27 Sunshine for SRCS and SRTA. So.
Do we have any blue cards or comments on this? I don't have any over here.
No blue cards, President Medina.
Okay, seeing no blue cards, no comments. The public hearing is now closed. We'll now move on to item F3, the approval of proposed district Santa Rosa Teachers Association contract reopeners, Sunshine for 2025 through 2027.
Okay, thank you, President Medina, Superintendent Dr. Morales, members of the board. I am here today to ask for your approval of the contract reopeners for the 2025 to 2027 contracts in agreement with SRTA when we closed our negotiations in May of 2024. We came to an agreement on which articles we would be reopening for the following negotiations to take place in January. We agreed to Article 11, leave of absence provisions, Article 14, which is the definitions for RSP and SDC, Article 16, compensation, specifically but not limited to salary schedules, athletic directors, department chairs, credentials, and certificates that authorize particular kinds of services and instructions, and benefits for all bargaining unit members for the 25-26 and 26-27 school years. We are also going to be reviewing appendices, job descriptions, and stipends. And we are going to partner with SRTA to review, clarify, and make any necessary minor adjustments to any articles and sections within the CBA. So we are asking for a motion to approve our proposed reopeners.
Board, is there any questions? No questions. Let's see if there's any public comment. Any public comment? I see no cards. Comes back to the board for further discussion or for a motion.
I'd like to move to approve the proposed SRTA contract reopeners.
Second.
Moved by trustee De La Cruz, seconded by trustee Sheffield. If there's no further discussion, let's go to the vote.
Student Board Member Zaninga.
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz.
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield.
Aye.
Trustee McNally.
Aye.
Trustee De La Torre.
Aye.
Trustee Manieri.
Aye.
Trustee Flores.
Aye.
President Medina.
Aye. Thank you. We will now move on to item F4. This is the 2024-25 first interim fiscal report. Associate Superintendent Lisa August and Joel Dantos. Floor is yours.
Thank you, President Medina, Superintendent Dr. Morales, when she returns, our trustees and our Santa Rosa City Schools community in person and online. I do want to start by saying that, letting you know that we did upload a replacement attachment today that does have that has translated slides, as well as one new slide in there as well, and that's called out as new. So just to give everyone a heads up, that is a combined presentation that is available. We will eventually have the board report update translated as well. They're just very wordy, and by the time that we get them done, they aren't ready to be uploaded at the same time. Translation needs time for that. Excuse me. Share my screen. And okay. Thank you. So this evening, we are talking about our first interim report. We'll give you an overview and go through our assumptions, our multi-year projections. There is some duplication in here from information that was presented during the special meeting on November 20th, but that is key and pertinent to the first interim update. We'll kind of skip quickly through those slides, though, since it's duplicate information. So just a reminder of where we are at. This is our first interim report, which does provide the update from July 1 through October 31st, as well as information that we know at this time is incorporated in those multi-year projections. So it is an estimate of where we expect to end this year, plus a projection for at least the next 2 years. You will see in this interim report that we did include, and thank you very much to Joel and our fiscal team, did include 2 additional years in the projection so that we can see the impact that the fiscal stabilization measures have on the long-term stability of our district. You will hear from us again in January when we bring you information about the governor's budget proposal as well as our audit report, and then February for our mid-year update for the LCAP, and March for second interim. Hopefully we won't have any, well, we shouldn't have any need for a third interim this year, and then again in May and June as we go through this process. Just a reminder that it is a continuing cycle and it is all driven by the LCAP, which is heavily influenced by public participation and parent input. So it really is extremely important that we do have that participation in those meetings coming up. So again, I'm just information I already shared. We'll skip through that. Due to the adoption of the fiscal stabilization plan, we, in coordination, consultation with our county office, with Sonoma County Office of Education, we do expect that we would have a positive certification. So that is what is being presented to you this evening. That means that we are expecting, with the implementation of the fiscal stabilization plan, which will come to you in a more detailed form after the recommendation for specific school consolidation and closure, as well as more specifics on the staffing ratios and the reductions that for sustainable staffing in the future. that all of that will come to you in February in preparation for the March 2nd interim. So just an overview of the assumptions that we have in the current year, plus what we expect based on information provided in those out years. Again, you will see all the way out to 28, 29. That just seems really strange to say that. We do expect continued increases in CalPERS. Again, CalPERS is the retirement plan for all classified employees, including classified administrators. CalSTRS is the retirement plan for all certificated staff, so teachers and certificated administrators. Step and column is just an average used of 1.5. We do have what was included in the budget as $4,750 per cell for SRTA and the groups that follow their contract. And then CSEA is not specifically called out in here. We do expect to have negotiations later this week. So hopefully we can get to an item actually called out specifically on there after there is a public offer that is in there. You do see see a consistent decline in funded ADA and enrollment based on the projections of the low demographics and what we've experienced this year. This is, again, information that was shared during the fiscal stabilization update and the changes in what we've predicted based on the actual enrollment this year and the upcoming years projected with our uncertified data. So those numbers could change slightly as far as our percentages, but again, definitely an increase in our supplemental and concentration grant funds based on our increased unduplicated pupil counts, which again are either they fall into one or more of three categories: are low socioeconomic status students, so free and reduced, English language learners, or foster homeless. And those are the funds that are required to be specifically called out in our LCAP, or our local control accountability plan. So you can see that that actually provides a bit of a cushion in there compared to what we had before, substantially different. And it really makes up some of that difference in the drop in enrollment based on the increased unduplicated pupil count. And then we do just have those charter projection information as far as actual enrollment as well, and the impacts on their budgets, which we did talk about during the fiscal stabilization special meeting, so I won't belabor that. Again, the assumptions based on the fiscal stabilization plan that was adopted by the board, we were then able to incorporate that information into our current estimated budget and our multi-year projections. And here you do see the difference in our revenues, and I'll go ahead and let Joel speak to that for a moment.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Good evening, President Medina, Superintendent Morales, trustees. So since we adopted the budget in June, the school district and my staff and everybody have been working on, reviewing the budget with actual information through October 31st. So we've shown here kind of the differences between what was last spring and what we have updated this fall. So one thing about the revenues and the report we're looking at here, it includes both unrestricted and restricted sources. So you can see the changes in federal revenue. Those are all due to the title funding updates that we've got allocations. We budgeted some of the carryover. So when we budget those, we have to budget the actual revenues that represent the expenditures. So we've spent this fall building programs and working with the state and federal and establishing those budgets. Similarly, the other state revenues are those differences are due to we budgeted the Golden State Pathways implementation program. We had mental health services budget updates. We early preschool grant, special education preschool grant, the classified school employees summer assistance program, and the teacher residency implementation grant. And you can see other local revenues. That was a pretty, we recognized some medical billing revenues and some others, local special education revenues that we've talked about.
Something to note about the Medi-Cal revenues when we receive those are reimbursements for services provided. And typically it's multiple years that we receive at a time. We don't know specifically when those will be received. So we don't tend to budget those, and they are restricted funds. So while they were provided for, they're received for services already provided, we're still further restricted on how we spend them in the future. So we are working, I know our team in special education, our special services team is working on a plan that meets the requirements of that. And we are looking to see where we can fit that into areas in our fiscal stabilization plan rather than creating additional new programs. Trying to be as effective and efficient with the dollars that we are receiving.
Okay, so here we're looking at the expenditures updated through October 31st. So the two items of impact here are in employee benefits. So, we had an increase in our certificated health CalPERS plans. We had open enrollment, so we had to increase the budget related to some additional opt-in employees. Did you have a question, Omar? I'm sorry.
Did you say you had an increase in like the enrollment,
No, so our teachers, they went with the CalPERS, and they can choose to take out a plan or not take out a plan. So we have inside our human resources financial system, we have all the employees that take a plan and all the plans that they cost and the total district liability for those plans. But then they go through open enrollment and new employees come in, and like when we do new hires, they take out new plans. So then we adjust the budget after actual employee staffing is allocated and the plans are finalized.
I guess I'm just curious, when we budgeted based on an estimated percentage, not based on the total? Okay.
Well, both. We budgeted on the actual plans that are taken out and assumptions for vacancies and different things, but then we updated in the fall when actual plans are in place.
So one of the things that we did that we're seeing as a trend is it looks like based on the more attractive benefits package, we're seeing a change in what some of the employees are selecting on a level of coverage. Plus there are increases in the actual cost of benefits that were unknown at the time of budget adoption. So now that we have, rather than a hard cap, we have a soft cap where it's an adjustment of a percentage of the plan. That does affect our budgeting a little bit differently than it has in the past. So we're likely to see a little bit more fluctuation in employee benefit costs than we've seen in the past, where we had a hard cap where we could say, okay, here's the maximum that would ever be taken because it's all a flat amount. So it just works differently with that soft cap as we adjust based on actual medical or benefit costs.
And could you touch base on what accounts for the increase in salaries over the budgeted amount? I don't know if it's restricted or unrestricted because it's kind of all mixed in here.
Yeah, no, I can. So no, the certificated salaries increase was due to similar circumstances where we went through all the actual placements and staff that's but that update wasn't something that stands out as really a material thing and that's spread out over all resources, all staff throughout the whole district. So there was just you know, when we pull all those positions for, we have, you know, based on prior years, actual assignments plus vacancies, but then throughout the summer, teachers leave the district, new teachers are hired on, and then we budget all the certificated salaries based on actual placements in the fall. So there is an increase due to that reason, but I'm looking at the increase in the employee benefits. Those are the two really impact I was thinking, and then I was going to go over the service and other operating expenditures.
I think I'll just add, just because I know it was brought up by the public, and I know I had the question as well. And maybe I just didn't understand something, but I think generally when we budget, I think we're budgeting based on FTEs, and like, you know, we're seeing that they're not all full. I mean, I would assume that we're not even meeting that budget expenditure, but now we're over expending. So that's why it's hard, I think, well, for me to understand, and I imagine even more so for the public.
So again, depending on what positions are actually filled and the placement that people come in at, so depending on their education and experience levels, that's going to fluctuate, as well as the number of positions. Another thing that goes into each of those are additional pay. So when we have stipends or overages for class loads or for caseloads or other things of that nature, and something that's going to be in here that wouldn't have been in the original budget would be things that are new to those grant programs or restricted funds as well. So it's a combination of things. It's not any one item. It's a combination of all of those factors.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to reference when we were saying that we increased the federal grant revenues. That was also due to a number of the increases here in these other categories as well. So the revenues offset those expenditure increases. The ones that are really impacting our kind of multi-year projection and unrestricted, what's the word I'm looking for? Unappropriated, unassigned, unappropriated ending fund balance is the employee benefits and the contracted services. And the employee benefits was mostly from just the current health plans that our CalPERS members have taken out in that budget area. And then in the service and operating expenditures, so there was an increase in our mental health and special education contracted services. And, you know, we do have these non-public agencies that we contract with, and we're seeing not, you know, what's the historical differences in our trends and those increases. I know there was a recent SELPA approved increase in those, and so yeah, it's a material increase in those contract services. So we've identified that. We've had many discussions with the special ed education department, and Lisa has in the multi-year projection some new assumptions that will help.
So one of the things that we're talking that Joel is alluding to in there is that we're really looking forward to the presentation from Dr. Gillespie in January about the special education study that we had done, that is really to take a look at not reducing services to special education students, but how do we review what it is that we are doing to provide those services and providing them in a better way. So are we over-identifying students who should be better served in our general education classrooms with tier 1 interventions first, tier 1, tier 2 interventions that really should be under general education rather than students being identified as special education and having extremely intensive supports that are maybe one of the things that does happen is that we have students who are identified potentially in elementary school for, say, an English, an articulation issue. And rather than that being determined and reviewed and the student exiting before they come to us in seventh grade from a feeder district or even from our own schools, that they're not being evaluated as to whether they should be exited out or the services changed. And so we know that we have overages in caseloads and things of that nature. So I think it will be very instructive when we have Dr. Gillespie here to go through the particulars of what his report found. And he does come with recommendations as far as how we implement a plan to better provide services going forward. Again, it's not about reducing services. It's about providing services in a more effective way for our students. But that is one of the things that we do expect to have a significant impact on some of these items, specifically our services and operating expenditures. We are seeing a large number of non-public school placements that we are looking at revamping our programs to actually bring those students back to our fold, as we are also providing services to other districts now as well. And so we're seeing an increase in revenues in a way that offsets directly the costs that we have for operating specific classrooms. So those are, I'm probably going into a little more detail than you want on that, but just knowing that those are the things that we're evaluating, and we'll be bringing more information as we get closer to second interim after we have that special education plan and come forward with implementation, what that would look like as a proposal.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for bringing this to our attention. Especially now, when we're looking at extensive budget cuts, right? Seeing a $13 million, extra expenditure that we did not accommodate for to begin with, sends an extremely wrong message to the entire community. Now, having said that, what can we do to properly project in future cases so we're not in this case? Because right now we're in the middle of negotiations with CSEA, Teamsters. We're going to start negotiations with SRTA. And this is such a low blow in terms of our ability to negotiate. So my question to you is, how can we prevent these sort of things from happening in the future?
So two pieces to that. One, not all of that is in unrestricted revenues. As Joel mentioned, a large portion of that, the majority, is actually in the restricted side, which has to do with the way that we're required to do that budgeting. So it doesn't mean that there's unexpected revenues or unexpected expenditures. It's that we have to budget in a way that matches the revenues to the expenditures. And so it gets taken out of the budget and then put back into the budget. And that's just the way that especially on the federal side, that the way that some of those restricted funds work, as well as some of the local grants, there's a combination of things. So that piece, I think that what may be helpful in the future is on a slide like this, if we break that out between what's restricted and what's unrestricted.
Right, I was just going to ask you that.
It would make it more clear.
Right.
So thank you for that feedback. That's certainly, a great way that we can improve on that messaging. And the other piece is really, I would say one of the things that happens is that when we have students who are in need and items are identified in plans and added without necessarily, I can't speak to always the appropriateness as far as whether something is specific to the needs of a student, if we're helping them to become more independent, or if we are providing services because it's something that's being requested because somebody feels that it's a nice thing to do versus what's the appropriate thing to do in a placement. I can't speak to that because that's
Right,
certainly
but
not my
we
area.
talked about that before. We
Yeah.
talked about the appropriateness of MPS placements and all that, and I thought that was already, being set forth, right? And to see this being incorporated, it's an unpleasant surprise, to say the least.
Absolutely, I would agree. So we are, again, that was one of the reasons for bringing in Dr. Gillespie. is to help us to get a better handle on that. Our special education identification rate is about 19%, and on a state average, it's closer to 12.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this is something that I did want to call out specifically that, I really appreciate the additional time that Joel took to include 2 more years in the projection so that we can see that while we see lots of red down there in the short term, in the long term, by implementing our fiscal stabilization plan, by right sizing our programs, services, and sites and staffing, to be able to meet the needs of the enrollment that we have, we do get to a point in a few years of actually being in the black and being able, what that will enable us to do, as we've talked about, is reimagine, reinvigorate, really revitalize our programming and to be able to enrich and enhance that in the future. It will be a painful couple of years, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. We really need to continue the hard work together as a community. The other thing that I want to call out on here is the way that we did adjust that, excuse me, to meet that unexpected about $5 million, dollars in the unrestricted, that hit there, is that we did taking some advice or some guidance from SCO, is that we do have interest that is being earned on the bond funds that is unrestricted. We have the intention of that going towards bond projects. In the short term, we do plan, with the board's approval this evening, to move a portion of that into Fund 17 specifically to meet our reserve for economic uncertainty. That helps us to maintain that 3% minimum while not being spent, actually moved into the general fund. So it is there specifically only for economic uncertainty to get us through that 3% over the next couple of years until we're able to transfer that back into the bond funds after rebuilding through our fiscal stabilization plan.
So I just want to stop for a second, sorry. Just, and reiterate, Joel, really do appreciate the extended projection on this particular slide, because I do think it speaks to something that was stated in public comment, that school closures don't necessarily save money. And there is a study that indicates that. But when we actually see it here in a projection, I mean, we're facing the reality, and we're facing a public that is having a hard time seeing that reality. And when we can demonstrate that what the ultimate decision is going to be made is done in a fiscally responsive way, that is looking to the future, anything that we can do to do that, to continue to send that message to the public, so that it doesn't create chaos or give false hope. When I saw the added years on this, it's comforting. It's comforting knowing that there's so much pain going on right now, and that there's reason, and that there is something that will come from this ultimately. And when you look at it projected out, and it's not way down the road, this is on the next block. So I just wanted to pause and bring comment to this particular slide.
Thank you.
Trustee Flores, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was trying to write my question down. So in terms of moving, reading glasses now. In terms of moving the funds from our interest, from our bond interest, so how is that going to affect our compound interests, I mean, since we're going to remove it from a place to put it into to the 3% reserves, is that going to affect any sort of future projects? You know, how much are we going to lose in compound interest if we were to do that? So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Since we're keeping it in another special reserve, the plan is not to spend that, which would mean that we would still be earning the same interest. Because all of our money is actually pooled in the county treasury. It's just separated by fund for our accounting purpose, but it's all lumped together anyway. So it
So-
doesn't affect the interest
All
on
right, so in
that.
terms of long-term planning for projects, that's not going to affect us by moving the funds to Fund 17? Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
And how would that be tracked long-term? Like, let's say that you leave, right? And who's going to keep track of that? Don't leave.
That is actually something that's really important that we call out in these annual or these quarterly budget reports, that's tracked, that we have it identified. In our financial system, there are notes that we can make as well, but those transfer over as we're doing these reports and calling it out to the board. I think it's really important that we have that in there. We also, by law, anything that becomes above our 3%, we have to provide an information at the to the board with the budget that why we have money there that's over. So if it's at there and just didn't get moved back, it would trigger why is that here? And we'd have to look at what it was assigned or committed for.
And then for transparency's sake, how is it indicated, labeled, identified for the public in a way that they can understand it, not thrown in a spreadsheet?
So in the spreadsheet, in the official state documents, we have to list it as it's specially coded as a reserve for economic uncertainty. We have to do that to be compliant with our 3%, but we can call it out in our narrative, in our report, explaining very clearly what it's there for and why.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and this is just an overview of our other funds and where those are are projected to be at the end of the year. Again, you see things in there that are based, remember, we have a budget, which is a plan, and then what we actually do or how those get updated throughout the year. It's not unusual to see changes, especially in those other restricted funds. When we talk about building fund, it's going to be based on which projects actually move forward or not, the timing of payments, developer fees, it's going to be on actual receipts or expenditures out of there. Just all of those things in general, those are areas where you expect to see a lot of change from adoption to your interim reporting periods. The key thing is that they are all expected to be positive. That's the important part. And we wanted to bring this slide back as a reminder of why our fiscal stabilization plan is needed, why school closures are an important part of that. And it is about right sizing. And then again, why we need those staffing ratios so that we stop making, knee-jerk reactions to budget crisis or budget inflows. There may be times where we have to staff more leanly or where we have restricted funds that call for additional staffing. Those are different and, those need to be identified and called out.
Enrollment history, just looking from my 8 years on the board, that drop, 2,500, coming on 3,000 students.
And a reminder, this is only for Santa Rosa City Schools, comprehensive schools.
Yeah.
It's not
That's-
charter.
yeah. So 2,500 to 3,000 students
Mhm.
in 8 years.
Yes. So this is specifically Fund 01. the impact on that.
And so trying to answer some of the questions and concerns from the public about, mismanagement, of this board when we can't manage a 3,000 student loss.
In that short of a time span, that is a huge shift. And during that time, all of those one-time funds were received every year from 15, 16 through 23, 24.
Yeah. And in
Received
that,
or carried
right.
over, yeah.
And then in that time, we also had massive wildfires. We had loss of, neighborhoods in Santa Rosa. We had a pandemic. We had the increasing cost of living in the North Bay. We had exodus.
Mhm.
These are the reasons.
Absolutely. And this isn't a trend only for us.
No.
This is a trend not only in our local county, but across the state. And when you look at birth rates, that's a nationwide and, issue. These are not trends that are expected to recover in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Can I just note that when I first came to the board, this is my next to last meeting. One of the things that I discussed here with the previous superintendent, the two previous superintendents, was right sizing, right? And then we came up with a plan of reducing FTEs, but then COVID hit, right? And then that never took place, right? So I just want to reiterate that we've been talking about right sizing since I've been on the board, which has only been 4 years, and I'm assuming the same sort of conversations happened when you were in,
And I want to say we had fires and the impact
Right,
that had on students. And another theme that came up in the conversation was the mental health of our students. And we received federal dollars and we received state dollars to help address these things, but those weren't given permanently.
Right.
So,
and I just want to say that, we were dealt a very strange sort of hand, right, by fate in the last 4 years, 8 years.
8 years, thank you.
At least, yes, thank you. And we're here, and as painful as it is, hopefully, I won't be here making that decision, unfortunately, right? Hopefully, we don't have to close any schools, but we still have to right size the school district to make sure that we're solvent in terms of our, to be able to pay our bills. And I just want to say to the community out there, and, I didn't want to take time earlier today to talk about this because I wanted to hear from the community, but it's been a conversation that we've had at least for the last 8 years, right? Over and over again. And it is very painful that we're here at this juncture. And I wish we didn't have to do any sort of cuts. But I'm gonna go back and say that finding extra sort of, expenditures doesn't bode well for us in terms of making sure that we have the trust of the community.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, let me get back to. So looking at our historical financial factors, because again, we want to make sure that we tell the story of how we got here. And this one was, we're just trying to mix it up with go from right to left instead of left to right this time. When you look at what when we talk about the retirement cost increases, again, this is across the board. It's not specific to our labor partners. This encompasses all of our staff. So CalPERS, this is the employer portion. The employees also have a share for CalPERS and for CalSTRS. And so we went from 11.4% back there in 12-13 up to 27%, and it's projected to continue to increase. CalSTRS does not fluctuate as much or as often because that does take an act of the legislature to make that change versus the CalPERS board for the classified retirement. We also had, remember, some years there where there were large gaps, so in funding, so that LCFF gap funding percentage, that was to make up for funds that the district did not receive during the time of the recession. Statutory COLA is our statutory cost of living based on 6 factors as required. And then you see in some years, like in 2021, before we had that increase in the following year, we had actually a 0. So we were required to get 2.31 and we actually received 0. So when that compounded, it was compounded on no increase, there was no compounding that year. So that is why they did add that augmentation in the 21-22 year. Again, in 22-23, the state had extra funds. And so we did see a little bit of catch up there essentially. And then remember 23-24, 8.22%, and then to 1.07%. And you'll see in another slide, I think, or a couple slides later, the difference between what was projected for this year and what was actual for this year and the long-term effect of that.
So that jump in PERS and STIRS from, I just want to look at my time on this board.
It was
8
even
years.
lower when I first started in 2007.
So how does, the percentage wise, what does that equate as dollars?
I can't tell you off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but that would be a good one to bring back, the difference in what that means on an annual basis.
Okay, because that's another one for the public to really wrap their heads around what that means in dollars. And that is something that we've been talking about my entire time on this board, is that not a steady uptick. This is a pounding, stomping jump.
Right, it's outpacing. If you look in the 1 year, what was it, 17, 18? Or if we look at 16, 17 to 17, 18, it jumped,
My first year on the board.
1.5%. And so that the COLA was eaten up entirely by the retirement increase.
Yeah.
Let alone that's supposed to cover all of our increased costs, including our step and column, our, negotiated increases with staff, our increased operating costs for utilities,
Yeah.
all of those things. And so we are consistently underfunded as far as the just natural increases that are required. We don't receive enough to make up for that, which puts us in a deficit already.
Yeah.
When you look
If
at
we can figure the math on that, that might be something to, to provide to the public what those dollars mean. And again, going back to that 2016, 2017, that massive jump, that was the first thing we talked about, in one of my first meetings, was what that impact really means. And it was also the discussion that, and the pushback that other districts were giving to the state. That same year, because how painful that is going to be for the districts, and other school districts were dealing with it as well.
Thank you. And again, just a description, this was actually a really long spreadsheet that I had to split into a few slides. So, this was a lot of work on Joel and team as far as gathering the information, and just some information on some factors that happened there. So in 24-25, the state overestimated those tax revenues because of the delay in the extension for tax returns. We had an L-shaped economic recovery and that mega COLA, which were good things for us, but again, issues later on because we come to expect those larger COLAs and those are actually unusual. So just some information there. Here's where you see the difference in the enacted COLA, the 1.07 versus the 3.94 that was originally projected for the 24-25 year. In the long term, when you look at the compounding of that, that's a $6 million difference. And so that's $6 million a year, really, when you look at that, it's that compounding effect. And so that's not even thinking about the decline in enrollment in that period. That is strictly the difference in COLA.
Could you just explain that a little?
Sure.
Simpler.
So at the time, so when we were looking at the budget adoption for 23-24, the projected COLA at that time for 24-25 was 3.94%. When we came to first interim last year, I think we all had a little bit of a panic when we heard that, oh, the legislative analyst's office was saying it was going to be 0.76. So we were actually a little happy to see the 1.07 in comparison to that, because this number would have actually looked worse. So what we built original multi-year projections on was almost 4 times what we actually had in this year as far as for that cost of living increase. So that COLA amount there. So for this year specifically, you can see it was a $4.6 million hit. For next year, that compounds to be 5.3, 5.5, 5.6, and 5.8 as we go into those out years because of that change in that COLA. And you can see up top that the 25-26 also dropped from 3.26 to 2.93. So you have a smaller amount compounded on a lower amount. So again, these are just things that change as we make those updates. We always have a plan and it changes, just like thinking, oh, I was counting on a raise at work and I didn't get it. I was counting on, less in my electric bill this year, and here it is more. Those are all the things that compound to create the issues that we have. And again, a look back at all of those one-time funds and the years that they were received in. And then to this year where we don't have those any longer. And to look back at the certifications at each of our interim reporting periods. The thing that we want to really commend the board on is that by adopting our fiscal stabilization plan and moving forward with implementation and continuing the right sizing and stabilization, we're hoping to get out of the mode of cutting, of always going from qualified, oh, is something bad going to happen? Are we going to be able to weather the storm? By really making long-term lasting impacts, we should return to a state of having positive reports going forward. Yeah, that it'll take us a little while to get there. We may dip in and out of positive and qualified based on those changing factors until we get to that finalization of really having some stability in right sizing our district and our services.
And in that 24-25 SRTA row, could you let us know approximate what percentage that would equate to for that year?
I do have it somewhere. I believe that it ended up being an average of around 5% because it ranged, depending on where on the salary schedule due to the flat dollar amount. And so if you look at the other groups as well, it went anywhere from about 2% to closer to 7%. So it really just varies.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to highlight, I know that educational finance is really complicated, but if there's one thing I want to be able to teach our families and our community is if you understand positive, qualified, and negative, that gives you a really simple way to be able to see if a district is in distress. Because when you look at this and you go back to the fact that we've been qualified off and on since 2016, that right there tells you a picture. This is something that the district has been talking about and struggling with for quite a bit of time. It didn't happen overnight. I know it feels for the community that it just happened overnight and they're just hearing about it now. But if there's a message we can share is for them to know, okay, were we qualified, were we positive? Because that really helps them understand where we stand fiscally as an organization.
Can I ask a question? So all of this didn't happen in a vacuum, right? Like we're seeing the big picture and I really appreciate all this. And I know that getting us out of the red is also not going to happen in a vacuum. And even though we've adopted the fiscal stabilization plan, that's only really one tool and one way that we're going to get out of this. And so I don't want to like jump the gun or derail this, but I am really curious to know, and other people might be thinking this too, what else are we going to be doing? What else are we going to be looking at? You know, are there ideas? Are there policies? Are there things that this board can do and work on as we move forward to also make sure we don't end up in this place again, and that we're not in a place of continuing to make cuts and having that be our only solution?
So some of the things that we've talked about, like really looking, analyzing what we're doing, how, so our systems, our processes, making sure that things are standardized as much as possible. I mean, I can tell you that even in our custodial team, you know, over, you know, the years since the custodial manager position was put in place and the standardization that happened out of that, that saved millions of dollars over the last several years, based on standardizing and creating real processes and systems for how things are done. That's the importance of bringing in Dr. Gillespie. It's the importance of creating our staffing ratios, of looking at how do we structure our schools differently? You know, how do we reimagine doing this in a better way?
You know, sorry, I know we're not supposed to negotiate here or anything like that, but something that I would love for us to start thinking about is how do we standardize our high schools, for example, our scheduling system, our busing system, so we can, you know, not, you know, so we can say, so it'll have some sort of cost savings. And I know that's a negotiable sort of item, but that's something I would love for us to start looking at because there's a lot of cost associated with that, right? But that's just, you know, for us to think about. And to start thinking outside the box. You know, what other things can we do? You know, can we include our, you know, our partners in education to see if we can work collaboratively in ways that we can do some sort of cost savings in the future, right, long term. So just FYI, right? But I'm not negotiating. Okay, so in case I'm getting an angry text from the SRTA president here. So no, okay, great. I know she is.
Thank you. It's just a reminder that our fiscal stabilization advisory, sorry, I'm going to back up for a second. You talked about input, and yes, our LCAP meetings are the times for that parental involvement, not just parents, but all of our community partners, our educational partners are key in that, because we do have to identify how we prioritize the funds that we do have. And while it's specifically our supplemental and concentration, it also helps to guide how we develop the rest of the budget. So, thank you. And Fiscal Stabilization Advisory Committee, I know everybody's probably tired of hearing about this every presentation, but the work that happens in there has been ongoing for a long time. And it's I feel like it's an extremely helpful committee that does bring things forward, and we have input from our labor partners, and we will be going out asking for parent volunteers in January. I do have a couple people who have reached out, which is great because our parents that we had their students have moved on. Okay. And again, our School Consolidation Advisory Committee, we did already talk about this earlier in my report, so I won't belabor this one. Just again, our timeline and the makeup of that committee. Our continued areas to monitor our federal programs and funding. In our general fund 01, federal funding accounts for about 3%. And that is restricted for us. Collective bargaining always has an impact on the budget, and it's an important thing to keep in mind. Our economic trends, Definitely legislation around enrollment and ADA funding. Dr. Morales and I are going to the legislative action.
Can I just say something about that?
yes.
So I know there's been a few bills about enrollment, right? But I think we have to be cautious in terms of opening that Pandora's box because Prop 98 Prop 98, it's pretty robust as it is right now. If we go into enrollment, that would do a constitutional amendment, and that could affect negatively our actually appropriated funds from Prop 98. So it's something else to look at in terms, when we're legislating, just to ensure that, because there are other groups out there that if Prop 98 were to be opened up again, that we will get a lesser slice of the pie. So just keep that in mind when you are out there and talk about how this would affect in terms of, doing a, constitutional amendment to the California Constitution. Thank you.
Absolutely. There are a lot of, it's not a straight across the board, and it doesn't, even if it weren't on that side of it, you still would have this, even if nothing changed as far as Prop 98, it's still the same size pie. And so our slice of that pie may not even change because it would depend, I mean, as for us as a district, if there were no change to the Prop 98 piece of that.
No, but
because
changing from
every district-
ADA to enrollment, that would be a constitutional amendment. So that would definitely change, it could potentially change
Right.
our size of the pie. Just talk about it with legal and see how it would affect us. Okay, so it's something just to think about.
Absolutely. It's certainly an important piece of that. And then again, all of the other items that we've talked about on there with that. And I know, more to come as we go forward. This work continues. It's never done in a vacuum, as you said, and it is ongoing. It
Just to
isn't a one and
clarify,
done.
you indicated that you and the superintendent were going to what? Something about I missed the part.
Sure. Association for California School Administrators Legislative Action Days. So they do, so AXA covers the cost for us to go and meet with legislators to advocate for schools. And I'm also involved with CASBO, California Association of School Business Officials, working on the same type of thing.
Do we ever collaborate with our bargaining units to do something collectively to?
So the way this came about is Dr. Rainey from the county office, she is the assistant or associate superintendent of HR. She reached out to the superintendents because AXA has 3 Region 4 openings to be able to go and advocate in terms of the AXA covering the bulk of the cost. And so I threw out my name out there with Lisa. And after she talked to all of the superintendents, she came back and said, nobody else volunteered, so you and Lisa are in. So I'm like, okay, we'll go. So they'll cover our hotel and most of our meals. We just have to cover transportation and a few of the meals. But Lisa and I, they told us to wear our tennis shoes. We're going to be pounding the ground. This will be March 17th and 18th of next year.
I don't know if anyone understands how big this is. That is such a huge thing that you are doing to be in front of legislators and to advocate for our district. I congratulate you, Daisy, for being able to do this. And Lisa, this is such a big deal and something that we all need to do more of. So congratulations and thank you.
Maybe get a few tips from these two over here. Thank you.
So I really appreciate your work and efforts that went into this and reporting. It's so good to get this information out to the public on what's happening. I just want to reiterate enough that we have to be creative. We have to be innovative. We have to find new paths. We are 2 of 10 school districts in the city of Santa Rosa. And it continues to come up a lot. We tried to have that conversation with SCO about what district consolidation would look like for our city. We did not get as much communication as we hoped on that. We were able to look at some preliminary numbers of what that would look like, but that does not prohibit us from communicating with our 8 other districts in this city. And it's not about who gets there first. It's about how do we get there together? Because we are all trying to educate students in the city collaboratively. We are the only public high school district in this city. So we've got a lot of feeder districts feeding into that. How are we aligning and what opportunities can we find that similar to going to the CSBA as board members and collaborating with other board members throughout the state? Everybody's dealing with a crushing budget situation in the entire state. We're not the only ones. So how do we communicate and collaborate and not have all these isolated data as a silo with the other school districts, but share some information and talk about what opportunities we may have for long-term cost saving abilities that are going to benefit our students, our teachers, our staff. So every time we get an opportunity, I'm going to talk about it. Let's talk to our friends and our community partners and how do we collaborate and work together smarter to save some fun money, short-term and long-term.
Okay, our next steps, as I said, we'll see you, we're gonna have our, continue our community messaging. You'll see us in January with updates on the governor's budget proposal, and the school consolidation and closure advisory committee work will continue, as well fiscal stabilization. We'll have the special education study presentation along with an implementation plan. Again, continue messaging, and we'll have those town halls scheduled. We expect those flyers, and we're working hard to get those out this week if we can. We want to have people reserve dates to come in and share their input with us. And then in February, we have the audit will actually come forward to the board then. School consolidation recommendation, our more detailed plan for fiscal stabilization, and again, continued community messaging. And I will stop sharing. So I know we answered a lot of questions along the way.
Any other board questions? Not, I'm going to go to public comment, and then we'll come back to the board. For public comment, I have Margie Brady Long, followed by Jeff Gosby. Margie? And you have 90 seconds.
Good evening. I'll keep it short. My name is Margie Brady Long, and I've been a student, a parent, and a teacher in Santa Rosa City Schools since 1972. I try hard to attend every board meeting until the bitter end because I care deeply about Santa Rosa City Schools. I rarely speak out. You may not believe that, but I don't. But this item has me pulling my hair out, and I must ask 2 questions tonight. Number 1, after all the energy eliminating people and positions last year, how does Santa Rosa City Schools have 34 full-time equivalent employees more this year? And number 2, you tried to explain it, but I'm sorry. The projection of spending 13 million more than budgeted this year makes me wonder what's the point of cutting 25 million if we spend without restraint? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jeff Gosby.
Must be resident of the district. Just wanted to share an experience in a neighboring district because I think it's instructive for what you're facing. In 2019, because we had declining enrollment, we had to reconfigure 4 schools, close a school, and converge 2 other schools, so a total of 4. In doing that, first of all, it took a couple of years. We engaged with our staff and the community, and ultimately the reason it worked is we focused on sharing the what and the why for the vision of where we were moving to rather than what we were losing. Until you can share a compelling vision for how things will be better and what communities can look forward to, it's going to be challenging for your stakeholders to see anything other than what they're losing. Without vision being shared, many people will choose other districts or private schools, and you need to give them compelling reasons to choose Santa Rosa City Schools. Also concerning the budget, while it's great in the short term that there's more money from the unduplicated count going above 55%, I believe that that is a short-term increase that has a systematic underlying problem that reflects better resource students being able to leave the district for other districts and private schools. Furthermore, the LAO in the CSBA meeting said they think the COLA with 6 of 8 data points in will be 0.47% less on 166 million of LCFF. That's another 800,000 you need to cut, and you need to give raises. So you need more reserves, you need deep cuts, and most importantly, you need to give people a reason to stay in Santa Rosa City Schools.
Thank you. So it goes back to the board. I did have a question. I know Margie brought up that point of having more FTEs than before. Is that accurate? Could you elaborate on that?
Sure, there are a couple things for that. One, we actually have seen an increase in a shift from some of our contracted employees to some additional district hire employees. So that's a good thing. When we look at our aides and our CNS, we are seeing some success there. Not as much as we would like to see, but there is a shift there. And I have to say, I don't know on the other ones from that. It's something that I can bring back to you.
But this is above the FTEs that we budgeted?
Yes, so it would have been so when you look at the FTEs that we put in, there used to be an issue with the way that that was reflected in the difference between, so specifically if we think about special education and you look at the contracted costs versus the actual FTEs listed as available in Escape, it didn't used to match up. It was because there was a concern about double counting those costs. So Joel's taken the time, I know, to go through and pull out those costs when we're looking at the vacancies versus the contracts. So when you have those come in as actual filling of vacancies, then that's going to increase your FTE. It would come off of the contract side. So it's just a trading of one for the other as for some of those. That's not going to account for everything.
I mean, I'm just assuming that a vacancy is a budgeted FTE, so it should have already been budgeted. So that's not what we do? I mean.
Yeah, so these are the actual FTEs for our general fund across all restricted and unrestricted sources. So one example is we got a increased supplemental concentration grant, and we update our LCAP to include school-based therapists and other increased campus supervisors. So there are factors behind why we have increased FTE overall, but we do have an increased FTE. So that FTE is actually what was assigned in those years and reported in our human financial system. So those are some of the reasons that there is increased FTE, but there is an increased FTE.
So
The revenue for those, you would pointed out some grant money to pay for those positions.
Well, so we still have those grants monies. There was significant one-time monies throughout all those years. And as well, there's one other thing that happened during those years. We also had hold harmless our ADA from like 2018. So we didn't know that. So we would have plans to make reductions and do these things, but during the pandemic and for, to recover that learning loss, and we made the decisions that we would maintain existing services. So, yeah, but so.
And
so
for
the
all
end
the
result-
right reasons, I get that.
Yeah, so the end
Absolutely.
result of that history is the actual FTE of actual employees we had, we were assigned in our district that we were.
So the difference would be that when you're looking at actual FTEs, if you recall last year, we had a lot of vacancies in some of those safety positions and things like that. So those have been filled, and so those would now show as FTEs, where before they would have been showing as vacancies, not as actual FTEs.
But if they're, okay.
So it would be
Again, to
reflected
me,
in
it's if they're FTEs, whether they're filled or not, our budget should include even those empty spaces, because we're budgeting for those positions. Because if our budget's only what we currently have filled, then we have empty positions, then when we
So
hire
that
new
would
people, we're
not,
going about outside of our budget.
so that would not be correct for any that are planned to be filled with a contracted service, because then we would be double budgeting those funds. So that's.
That I
that's-
get.
Yeah, so that is a portion of it. So that is part of it is in there. It would not be all of it, but that is a portion of it.
I
As
think-
well as during the year, there are substitutes that we budget, and then there's class size overages that offset with, so we reduce the vacancy budget for that. But yeah, we start off the year projecting an FTE, and then we go through the year updating the budget with what's actually happening.
I think just again for transparency and for helping our community understand and us understand. I mean, that makes sense, you know, if we were contracting out versus now bringing it in, it makes sense. My understanding in the past is that the contracting out was more expensive, so bringing it in would be cheaper, but if, seems like we're still spending more. So I think as information comes out to us and is presented, I think one, really making clear what's restricted and what's not. In situations like that, I think maybe highlighting that or separate that or explaining it so that folks understand, I think would be very helpful.
Absolutely, and I can share that so while, yes, we have some areas where we've brought on staff, it doesn't mean that the cost of the contract has necessarily decreased because the costs of the employees of the actual services have increased also. So just as our costs increase, so do the contracts. That's something that, because many of those are actually negotiated through the SELPA as a master contract, those are things that we're looking at as areas where can we negotiate a better rate than what we're getting right now through the SELPA master contract. Those are things that Executive Director John Fisher is actually looking at right now as how we can be more effective and efficient with that as well.
I think we're all really looking forward to seeing how that part improves. Other questions,
Absolutely.
board? No? Okay, we did public comments. So if there's no further questions, board, is there any motion? And this would be a motion to approve the 2024-25 first interim report with the positive certification. And just to clarify, because earlier you mentioned something about this would also, so this motion approves moving the interest money into Fund 17. So that's included in this certification.
That is correct. That is included in the SACS reports that are attached along with the budget narrative with the explanation of that. So that would be approving that because it's within those
Yeah.
reports.
Could we then really have a clear one-sentence summary as to why, just as we end this, before I make a motion, of why that Fund 17 interest, yes. Go.
So it would be an interfund transfer to maintain our reserve for economic uncertainty, specifically in Fund 17, which is a special reserve for non-capital expenditures.
And where did it come from? That concept, that idea?
From Fund 21, from the interest earned on bond funds,
Yes.
unrestricted interest earned on bond funds.
And the total amount.
That total amount was, do you recall the number on there? It's in the report. I don't remember off the top of my head.
The interest earned on the bonds, so it was dated for the recent bonds back, the interest earned was $7.3 million. And it's in the SACS fund. And if you looked at the other funds, you can see where the ending reserve for the Fund 17 increased by that much and the Fund 2021 decreased by that much. And like Lisa said, you're required to report on your statement for excess reserves in both Fund 17, and that would be there. And it's also assigned as reserve for economic, it's also assigned for reserve for economic uncertainty in Fund 17 in the SACS forms.
And lastly, it's kosher, right?
Yes.
And the multi-year projection shows it transferred back in the third year.
So with that, I will move approval of 24-25 fiscal interim report. First, interim report with the hope of positive certification.
Second.
Moved by trustee Sheffield, seconded by trustee De La Cruz. Is there any discussion, board? Let's go to the vote.
Student Board Member Zuniga.
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield.
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz.
Aye.
Trustee McNally.
Aye.
Trustee De La Torre.
Aye.
Trustee Manieri.
Aye.
Trustee Flores.
Aye.
President Medina.
Aye. And could we just make sure that that last language is actually typed out in the minutes, please? Not just in video. Um, Thank you. Let's move on to,
Thank you.
can we move to extend the meeting maybe like till 10:30?
Motion to extend the meeting till 10:30.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any objections? Seeing none. Okay, meeting's extended to 10:30. Okay, item F5, discussion or action is a first read and possible waiver of second read for Board Policy 6158. Let's see who's presenting. We got Dr. Castro here.
Yeah, good evening. Superintendent Dr. Morales, President Medina, members of the board, students, staff, parents, community of Santa Rosa City Schools. We're here to update the board policy to reflect the updates in Senate Bill 153. I will turn it over to Coordinator of Alternative Education, Aaron Gilden-Gorin, for the specifics.
Superintendent Dr. Morales, President Medina, members of the board. The specific changes to this independent study board policy are a decrease in the minimum number of days from 3 days to 1 day for independent study, as well as multiple times in the board policy, changing the number of days from 15 to 16 for the number of days needed, or for the number of days before needing to engage in long-term independent study. That's to reflect, as Dr. Castro said, the changes in Senate Bill 153, allowing for up to 15 days of short-term independent study. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions, board? Seeing none. Any public comment? I don't see any cards. Seeing none. Back to the board. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the first reading and waive the second reading for Board Policy 6158.
I will second.
Moved by trustee De La Cruz, second by trustee Sheffield. Any discussion? Seeing none. To the vote, please.
Student Board Member Zuniga.
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz.
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield.
Aye.
Trustee McNally.
Aye.
Trustee De La Torre.
Aye.
Trustee Manieri.
Aye.
Trustee Flores.
Aye.
President Medina.
Aye. Thank you. We'll now move
Thank you.
on. Thank you. Move on to F6. This is an action item on the establishment of the annual organization meeting of the Board of Education. This is me. So we need to establish this by law. It has to be after the second Friday in December. Obviously, this Friday. So we had to add one more meeting to our calendar for our organizational meeting. Any questions? Seeing none, I don't see any public comment. Comes back to the board for a motion.
Move to establish the annual organizational meeting on December 18th, 2024.
Second.
Moved by trustee De La Cruz, seconded by trustee Sheffield. Any discussion? Seeing none, to the vote.
Student Board Member Zuniga.
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz.
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield.
Aye.
Trustee McNally.
Aye.
Trustee De La Torre.
Aye.
Trustee Manieri.
Aye.
Trustee Flores.
Aye.
President Medina.
Aye. Thank you. We will now move on to our consent items. Can I get a motion for items G1 through G12?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
trustee De La Cruz, seconded by trustee Sheffield. To the vote, please.
Student Board Member Zuniga.
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz.
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield.
Aye.
Trustee McNally.
Aye.
Trustee De La Torre.
Aye.
Trustee Manieri.
Aye.
Trustee Flores.
Aye.
President Medina.
Aye. Thank you. The motion carries. Now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the meeting held on November 13th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee La Cruz, seconded by trustee Flores. The vote, please.
Student Board Member Zuniga.
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz.
Aye.
Trustee Flores.
Aye.
Trustee Sheffield.
Aye.
Trustee McNally.
Aye.
Trustee De La Torre.
Aye.
Trustee Manieri.
Aye.
President Medina.
Abstain. All right, now moving on to approval of the minutes for the special board meeting held on November 20th.
Move approval of the special board meeting held on November 20th.
Second.
I'll give that to Ever. So moved by trustee Sheffield, seconded by trustee Flores. To the vote, please.
Student Board Member Zuniga. Yep.
Abstain.
Trustee Sheffield.
Aye.
Trustee Flores.
Aye.
Trustee De La Cruz.
Aye.
Trustee McNally.
Aye.
Trustee De La Torre.
Aye.
Trustee Manieri.
Aye.
President Medina.
Aye. Thank you. Now we will move on to board member requests for information. Are there any? Trustee Manieri, please.
Yes, I would like to know or be notified if we have any AR policies that tied to the safe haven resolution that we should be aware of, and any procedures and protocols documents that come out of that. And ideally, and the reason I'm asking for that is so that they can be shared with community as well. So I'd like to see those when they're ready. Thank you.
Other requests for information?
Yeah, I mean,
Flores?
I made this request last time, a while back, and I think Trustee Alegria made the same sort of request to ensure that we get a document mentioning the fair share of our approved charter schools, especially the one that we approved last time for special education. Yeah, thank you.
It's on the list. It's just.
Yeah, I know.
It's on the list.
You're right.
I only have one more meeting, so no pressure.
Any other requests? If not, I do have another request. First, following up on what trustee La Cruz mentioned earlier regarding the 2018 guidance on policy, what we implemented. So following up on that request earlier, I'd also like to request what the implementation plan would be of the safe haven policy, including what resources we have available for our employees to provide families, such as our family engagement facilitators or counselors, et cetera, to provide our families, or what community partners they might refer folks to, as well as any information on encouraging our students to participate in Know Your Rights workshops and bringing them, working with our community partners to have those led by them so that they're better informed as it relates to being safe. Anything?
I have another one.
Yeah.
Sorry. Might as well. I know. I'm like, so retirement incentives, that if we're going to start looking at that as a potential cost savings as well.
Homework list.
All right, is that it, board? Okay. Information items are attached to the agenda. With that said, I will now adjourn the meeting before 10.